Chapter 1003, Infinite Power White Lotus Sword Domain. The Sky Tower. The tower, located next to the White Lotus Sword Palace, is collapsing loudly. This tower is a projection from the true Sky Tower in a higher world. The power of the dragon god Asha has torn the entire White Lotus Sword domain away from the Sky Sword God's domain system. The Sky Tower built on the White Lotus Sword domain is also facing its own demise. The true Sky Tower, which connects the various star bridges of the Endless God's domain and represents the pinnacle of Endless God's domain civilization, is one of the 7 towers. In front of it, Lilibet pulled out her divine sword, the Sky Sword, with the azure Excalibur. At this moment, the divine sword, representing the power of order, is emitting a continuous high-pitched sound. Because someone has intervened and disrupted the order maintained by one of the highest level orders in the Endless God's domain, the 7 towers. The rules have been broken. In the compass on the icy blue hilt of Lilibet's divine sword, a reflection of an incredibly massive dragon claw appears. This dragon claw is even larger than the entire White Lotus Sword domain itself. There are billions of people living here, and because of the appearance of the White Lotus secret treasure, many noble families from the Endless God's domain have gathered here. The White Lotus Sword domain of the noble children is like a toy compared to this giant dragon claw. The power that makes up this giant dragon claw comes from the distant stars, from the throne at the northernmost part of the Endless God's domain. She is the dragon of order, the mother of time and space, the creator, and symbolizes birth, life, and death. Asha, the dragon god, is the ruler of the Starry Sky Dragon clan and the master of the dragon god's domain. On the compass handle of Lilibet's azure Excalibur, a partial outline of dragon god Asha is reflected. It is a void dragon bathed in starlight, with countless stars shining in its pitch-black wings, representing different gods' domains. Within the black scales that make up her tail, countless baby dragons are sleeping. Black dragons, red dragons, green dragons, white dragons, and yellow dragons. Gem dragons, fairy dragons, jade dragons, and the white holy dragon. She is the origin of the Starry Dragon clan. All dragon bloodlines, whether good dragons or evil dragons, can be traced back to her in the Endless God's domain. Her will is the will of the dragon clan. She is the eternal mythical dragon of the dragon clan, the dragon god of creation who possesses the power of origins and creation. This is not allowed. Lilibet lifted her head, her blue hair instantly standing upright, emitting a special signal. At the same time, several forces in the treasure space made similar actions. Through the star bridge, a distance of billions of light years can be reduced to 0. Dragon god Asha, who first broke the rules, directly projected her power into the White Lotus Sword domain. This action, like a fuse, caused a huge commotion throughout the Endless God's domain. However, Asha didn't care. She didn't pay attention to what consequences this action might have or what misunderstandings it might lead to. When it's time to take action, do it without any hesitation. The cost of hesitation and indecisiveness is something Asha experienced once and never wanted to try again. Humans, when they make mistakes, will face punishment and the suffering of imprisonment. This is because human society has spontaneously formed certain rules or a fixed order. However, this doesn't make any sense to dragon god Asha, who is at the level of creation. Even if she makes a mistake, no one has the right to punish her, let alone judge her as guilty. Those who dare to do such things must be tired of living. Inside the secret treasure space, a massive beam of light descended from the sky, enveloping the already wounded star-hunting dragon. The chains of billions of stars began to move, tighten, and exerted immense pressure towards the inside of the secret treasure space. This means that the cage has finally entered the final stage of capture. Dragon god Asha, who projected his own power directly into the White Lotus Sword domain, couldn't wait to reap the fruits. Ha ha ha, here it comes, here it comes. I've been waiting for you. Astaroth, who had almost completely occupied the earth with the crystal disk, firmly gripped abyssal condemnation and plunged it deeply into the ground. Hundreds of golden crystals rose from the ground, resembling countless golden blades standing on the earth. Yes, this is the moment Astaroth has been waiting for. Not to fight against star-hunting dragon, who is just a puppet, but to battle the real dragon god Asha. Facing the power belonging to the creation level, which even the legend-ranked cannot reach, it is hailed as the strongest embodiment of the world's ultimate rule, the most powerful field. Only such an enemy can arouse the fighting spirit of the strongest demon king born in the golden sea of chaos. The shining light that fell from the sky immediately dispersed all the darkness that surrounded star-hunting dragon Mumu Narabel, and it had a powerful force that made people want to kneel down on the ground. The power of the Creator God. Rebellion. Destruction. With endless desires, it triggers endless changes and plunges the world into chaos. The golden crystal patterns appeared on the blade of abyssal condemnation, and more runes began to dance on the sword, which came from the golden sea of chaos and belonged to the demon king. If the power of a creation represents the highest level of the endless god's domain, then the power of the demon king represents a kind of chaotic and extreme disorder. The demon king is a powerful being that destroys order and tramples on rules, and it is also the destiny that Astaroth holds. Let me show you what the abyss looks like. A pleasant curve appeared at the corner of Astaroth's mouth, and his golden blood boiled throughout his body. At this moment, Yun Shi, who shares the same consciousness with Astaroth, once again sees the impossible circuit. Countless, or even more, cannot be described with words, the endless intertwining, fusion, and weaving of runes creating scenes of language. Armor break stacked 1,000,000 times. Bloodlust stacked 500,000 times. Thousand strikes in an instant stacked 100,000 times. Blade of Chaos stacked 50,000 times. Dimensional cut stacked 30,000 times. It is definitely not something that humans can achieve. It's as if all numbers and rules have gone mad, and within the golden sea of chaos, numerous combinations of runes emerge. This is a secret hidden in Astaroth's blood, only the realm of infinite desires can create such a logic. Regardless of whether this reasoning goes against the usual logic of the world, regardless of whether the infinite accumulation of power follows mathematical rules, anyway, it can be done, it is possible. Countless combinations of runes come together to ultimately transform into a blade that even gods can be killed with, and that is the tactic Astaroth excels at. As long as she is given enough time and information, even a god can be easily killed. The stronger the enemy she encounters, the stronger the memory she engraves upon herself, and all of this ultimately becomes nourishment for the golden sea of chaos, making her even more powerful. Chapter 1004 Leaked information in the face of the sword light that seems to sweep and tear apart even the stars. Star-hunting dragon Mumu Narabelno. It is dragon god Asha raised the star hunter in hand and launched a command, Scythe. In that moment it was as if the entire sky had collapsed, and the weight of billions of the chain of star dragon instantly piled up on the Lord God weapon created to hunt Starchild. Silver runes illuminated on the barrel, with just one stab, completely dispersing Astaroth's sword light that could shatter the stars. Magic, incredibly simple yet unsolvable magic. Supreme Dragon God Asha, who broke the rules of the Star Bridge, had such unreasonable power. No matter how many runes Astaroth stacked in this slash, or how many times they enhanced the special effects, Asha only needed one strike to completely counterattack. If Astaroth's sword light is an endless swirling ocean, then Asha's strike is like a star-falling impact, capable of evaporating the entire ocean. In terms of absolute strength, there was a huge contrast between the two sides. Supreme Dragon God Asha, who personally intervened in this war, not only turned the tables on star-hunting dragon, but also completely suppressed Astaroth in their demon king state. This is the power of the Creator God Spirit, elevated to a level that Astaroth cannot defeat in terms of both quality and quantity. Yes, this is the kind of power, the so-called supreme power. Behind Astaroth, who was struck back to the ground for the first time, their dark wings soared, and countless ripples appeared in their golden eyes filled with chaos. Each ripple represents the changes in the chaotic golden ocean, reflecting the scenery within Astaroth's heart. Facing the star-hunting dragon Mumu Narabel, who demonstrated power at the level of creation, the flame in Astaroth's heart not only didn't extinguish but burned even more intensely. The more difficult the enemy is to defeat, the more we want to win. The scarier the opponent is, the more we can surpass our limits. The ultimate desire is endless freedom. A world without opponents is so boring. It is because of the existence of monsters like Astaroth, who has had the power of the Demon King since birth, that this world has the level of creation. Astaroth is filled with joy and excitement. At the same time, Yunshi, who shares consciousness with Astaroth, received some very bad news. Master. Something really bad is happening. Meyer, Yunshi's star spirit, who never interferes in trials unless in extreme circumstances, broke the rule and warned Yunshi for the first time. Is it the end of the world? Yunshi felt like there couldn't be any worse situation than now. Almost assimilated by the White Lotus secret treasure's most powerful future projection, the Golden Demon King Astaroth's body even disappeared in the crystal ball space. Across the way stood one of their most terrifying ex-girlfriends, Mumu's mother, Asha, one of the powerful gods called Supreme Dragon God of the Creator God Spirits. Surrounding them, the powerful chain of star dragons sealed them off, making escape nothing but a foolish dream. After this battle, it felt like it was time to return home and get married. No, it's worse than the end of the world. Master, it seems like they've also noticed something and started to stare at us. Meyer's voice trembled, even more than when Yunshi and Astaroth merged together. She had never been this panicked. The soul of Starchild cannot be destroyed, even if they become the Demon King. They. As soon as Yunshi heard this word, he had a terrible sense of foreboding. It's those few. Master, you haven't forgotten how you died in your previous life, have you? Ah, I remember. Or rather, it was Yunshi's earliest memory of Starchild. The desperate wolf ran everywhere but couldn't escape, and its soul turned into countless shining memories. It was too painful to look back. They all came. Meyer trembled in fear. This was not just a problem with the apostles, but the main characters were coming to block the door. Now, we might really be in trouble. Yunshi also felt that something big was not right. It was like being at the end of the road with no way to escape. Even with Astaroth's power, he looked like he had little chance against Dragon God Asha. If a few more came, it would be a complete collapse. Perhaps, even the seemingly all-knowing and all-powerful White Lotus secret treasure couldn't figure out a way to counter the 4 ex-girlfriends. Yunshi himself didn't know how he could defeat 4 creator-level ex-girlfriends. Speaking of which, what did he do in his past life to have the courage to take on this kind of challenge? Look, they're sinking. Master, the only plan now is to run away. Meyer gritted her teeth. Even if it meant exposing certain things, they had no choice. As the guardian of Starchild, carrying the great mission of the stars, the star spirit had 1 or 2 hidden cards that should only be used as a last resort. Can we still escape now? Yunshi looked at the chain of star dragon descending from the sky. Even if just one of them caught him, it would trap him completely. It was clear that Dragon God Asha had already anticipated this. I will never give you a chance to run. I will lock you up. The billions of the chain of star dragon seemed to have the words engraved on their chains. There is, but we have to wait for the opportunity, Meyer calculated cautiously. The opportunity might only come once. If they couldn't escape this time, no matter which one of his ex-girlfriends they fall into the hands of, the outcome would be disastrous. Dark Mark. Astaroth didn't care about what Yunxi and Meyer were thinking. For her, the reason for this battle didn't matter, nor did the goal. The battle itself was what she desired. Even if the opponent was a divine being of creation, it was no exception. More golden crystals rose from the ground. If Asha, who controlled the billions of the chain of Star Dragon, represented the sky, then Astaroth, at this moment, was the earth. The sky was high above, sacred and inviolable. The earth is deep and heavy, with endless flames and magma flowing inside it. When it erupts, even the sky changes color. A deep black sword mark runs across the heavens and the earth, tearing apart the boundaries between them. It even completely destroys parts of the chain of Star Dragon and creates a small opening in the perfect seal set up by Dragon God Asha. The 13 rings of the chain of Star Dragon's restrictions were not torn apart, but this small change triggered terrifying consequences. This slight flaw finally caught the attention of some people who had been observing this place, and they noticed that something was happening inside. Just like Dragon God Asha captured the threads of fate, some other people have also come into contact with them. Suddenly, the star bridge starts changing colors. Chapter 1005. The Tower Masters of the Seven Towers. The Star Bridge is the link connecting the various domains of the Endless God's domain. The Seven Towers are the nodes that carry all the star bridges. Each tower is unique but can project numerous avatars, responsible for connecting countless star bridges. After the Battle of Twilight of the Gods, this system has been running safely for millions of years without any problems. Until today. The ruler of the Northern God's domain, Supreme Dragon God Asha, was the first to break the rules. She used her highest authority as the owner of the Dragon Tower to forcibly take 1/7 of the liquidity from the Star Bridge, projecting her own power of creation from the distant Northern God's domain onto the White Lotus Sword domain in the Eastern God's domain. The entire White Lotus Sword domain was pulled out by Asha from the territory of the Sky Sword God's domain and forced to move towards the Northern God's domain. This action caused great panic among the various gods' domains on this star path. However, what nobody expected was that this was only just the beginning. Below the Sky Tower, Lilibet pulled out her own Sword of Order, the Blue Divine Sword. 3 strands of hair on her forehead stood up high, and the braids behind her automatically moved without wind, faintly showing the shadow of blue feathers. Understand, this kind of thing is not allowed. Following your will, arrive. The compass on the Order Divine Sword reflected the scenery of the sun, moon, mountains, and rivers, which was the legendary fantasy land of the entire Eastern God's domain, Kunlun God's domain. A gigantic tree grew from the top of the Sky Tower, opening the boundary between heaven and earth, humans and gods. The ruler of the Eastern God's domain, and the Supreme Dragon God Asha, one of the highest beings in the creation level, took action. On the star bridge of the Eastern God's domain, about 1/7 of the area changed colors. Lush vitality flowed along Asha's path and eventually turned into a green light that blocked the White Lotus Sword domain, forcefully pulled out of the Sky Sword God's domain by Asha. Lilibet stepped out into the starry sky, with a constantly spreading halo under her feet. The ruler of the Eastern God's domain, the West Queen Mother, joining the battle. At the same time, in the God's domain of the South, 2 different smells came sweeping in, each activating the power of one of the 7 towers and locking in their chosen positions. Inside the treasure space, far beyond the countless chain of star dragons, Sue opened her arms and blissfully savored the scent from the great origin. Naya, hooray! Countless ink-like substances dripped from the star bridge, splattering onto Sue and the red-haired warrior, instantly transforming the already towering figure of the red-haired warrior into a colossal creature twisted by black matter. With claws tearing, the chain of Star Dragon began to be ripped apart from the outside. Come, let me see what's hidden inside. Amid Sue's joyful laughter, as a disciple of Naya, she began to invade Asha's constructed cage. Ziyuan knelt down gently in front of a blurry figure that couldn't be seen clearly, on the same side of the secret treasure space. That was the goddess of ineffability, the lady who killed gods, the owner of the city of torment, Ms. Endenize, symbolizing the non-existent gods without names. Two primordial beings from the gods' domain in the south came at the same time. From Asha breaking the rules forcefully, to the three primordial beings intercepting at the same time, it was only a moment's time. And in just this short moment, the White Lotus Sword domain had already been dragged out of the Sky Sword God's domain, and was even about to fly out of the Eastern God's domain, forcibly moved by Asha to the central area of the Endless God's domain. In front of the White Lotus secret treasure, the twin witches guarding the golden scales started to shake. Just a few more. White Lotus looked at the unbalanced weights on both sides of the scales and shrugged. This is really... Red Lotus held onto her head. Everything had gone crazy since the appearance of Asha, the ruler of the Northern God's domain. Who could have imagined that the trial of the White Lotus secret treasure would attract the attention of four world-creating beings? What did her younger sister see in the prophecy given by the White Lotus secret treasure? Are you ready, sister? We are going to perform the divine descent technique. White Lotus held her sister's hand and guided them to make a choice. Now, they were like an arrow that had to be released. Understood, we are responsible for that one. Red Lotus never dreamed that as the priestess of the gods, they would be involved with that one. Red, the color of flames, passionate, lively, and hot. Orange, the color of the sun, gorgeous, sweet, and joyful. Yellow, the color of divinity, bright, pleasant, and shining. Green, the color of life, gentle, fresh, and peaceful. Green, the color of the sky, wide, clear, flawless. Blue, the color of the ocean, eternal, calm, gentle. Purple, the enchanting color, noble, charming, proud. Who can possess all these colors? Who is the owner of the seven-colored slate? She will not have a place in Pantheon, for she is the goddess above all. Ionia, in the moment when the true name was spoken, the golden balance fiercely began to shake, the seven-colored radiance intertwined, and then fell upon the twin witches. The descent of the gods has been triggered. At this point, almost all of the tower masters known to people in Endless God's domain had gathered at the seven towers. In Eastern God's domain, the tower master of the Celestial Tower is the Queen Mother of the West. In Northern God's domain, the tower master of the Dragon Tower is the Supreme Dragon God Asha. In the Southern God's domain, the tower master of the Earth Tower is Naya, the Lord of Chaos. In the Southern God's domain, the tower master of the King's Tower is the Nameless Lady. In Western God's domain, the tower master of the Divine Tower is Ionia, the god above gods. Among the seven towers, nobody knows who is the master of the Shadow Tower, which was the last one to be completed, and it seems to not exist in the real world. As for the Tower of Stars, which was the first one to be completed, it has never had a master, but rather is responsible for operating and dealing with matters related to the Star Bridge. At this moment, the five tower masters who had found the coordinates and arrived at the White Lotus Sword domain were the five creator-level beings seated on the highest throne of the Endless God's domain. Any of them has the power to destroy countless worlds in God's domain, especially the two creators in the Southern God's domain, which is known as the Abyss God's domain and is recognized as the most terrifying embodiment of the Endless God's domain. The city of suffering where Nameless Lady resides is the headquarters of various dark organizations in the Endless God's domain, providing unconditional shelter for all intelligent beings who commit crimes in the Endless God's domain. The King Tower stands in the center of the city of suffering. The king of the King Tower is not the human concept of a king, but the one who rules everything solely with absolute power, symbolizing the king of the strongest creatures. The Abyss Tower, where Naya resides, which corresponds to the Sky Tower, is a gathering place for countless monsters in the Endless Gods domain. It is also the hiding place of many evil gods, a paradise of indescribable things. Chapter 1006, The Halt of the Endless Gods domain. On this day, all the rulers of the Eastern Gods domain, Western Gods domain, the Southern Gods domain, and the Northern Gods domain were left dumbfounded as their star bridges instantly turned into musical staves. 5 different creator-level powers, through their respective highest authorities, took up 75% of the star bridge, completely halting its operation. The star bridge connecting the major gods domains in the Endless Gods domain is only operating with the remaining 2/5, but it is merely a drop in the bucket. The entire flow of resources and business activities in Endless Gods domain has fallen into a semi-stagnant state. No one has witnessed such chaos since the twilight of the Gods' War. This is the star bridge that connects the entire Endless Gods domain. For Endless Gods domain, which has become accustomed to using star bridges to transport resources and exchange information, even a 1-second delay in the star bridge would result in astronomical losses. Moreover, this time the entire star bridge system almost came to a complete halt. The system, which was supposed to operate normally, had 7 tower masters intercepting 1/7 of its capacity to transmit power. As a result, all the resources and information that were originally supposed to flow through these star bridges were forcibly squeezed into the remaining empty areas. Only Asha's 1/7 is manageable since the star bridge was designed with sufficient capacity. Although it may be slower, circulation can still be maintained. The other 4 tower masters of the 7 towers attempted to follow Asha's approach, but their prepared capacity could no longer support it. As a result, the star bridge system, which was still barely functioning, completely snapped. Apart from the part of the star bridge that belongs to the tower master of the 7 towers, the rest of the star bridge is blocked tightly by various goods and information, just like vehicles stuck on a road during holidays, unable to move forward or backward at all. If we consider the star bridge as a road between the Endless Gods domains, then at this moment, except for a few extremely remote gods domains that can still operate, all the other gods domains are blocked. The last time this situation occurred was during the twilight of the Gods' War, which swept through more than half of the Endless Gods domains. During that era, the star bridge system was not fully completed yet, and the war interrupted many star bridges, causing the connections between various gods domains to be severed. Since the completion of the 7 towers and the agreement reached by the 5 creator beings, allowing the use of star bridge connections, the civilization system of the entire Endless Gods domain has become completely different from the twilight of the Gods era. Now, the losses caused by a 15-minute blockage of the star bridge are probably greater than when the star bridge was interrupted for a year during the twilight of the Gods' War. However, no one has any solution to this situation. Because what is happening in front of them is beyond their imagination. Especially for the legendary beings standing at the pinnacle of their respective gods' domains, they can easily recognize the truth behind this musical staff. The ruler of the Dragon Tower in the Northern Gods domain is the supreme dragon god Asha. The ruler of the Sky Tower in the Eastern Gods domain is the Queen Mother of Kunlun. The ruler of the God Tower in the Western Gods domain is the God of Gods, Ionia. The ruler of the Earth Tower in the Southern Gods domain is the Lord of Chaos, Naya. The ruler of the King Tower in the Southern Gods domain is the Nameless Lady. The 5 known creators in the Endless Gods domain transformed the Star Bridge into a musical staff. The Star Bridge and the 7 towers were built by these creators together. Only such an existence can make all the rulers of God's domain accept the presence of the Star Bridge. Initially, many people feared the Star Bridge because it represented a power outside of God's domain, the power of a foreign invasion. It wasn't until people began to get used to the Star Bridge that bold merchants started selling specialties from different gods' domains through the Star Bridge. The entire Endless Gods domain developed rapidly in civilization thanks to the existence of the Star Bridge, and the rulers of God's domain gradually accepted its presence. Because the Star Bridge has existed for a very long time for wise beings, many people have forgotten about it. The 5 creators, who are the Tower Masters of the 7 Towers, each have 1/7 of the highest authority over the Star Bridge. The Star Bridge is not a thing that everyone owns, instead, it is a bridge built by the Tower Masters of the 7 Towers, reaching towards the stars. Until now, the owners of the 7 Towers each used their highest powers. Only then did people remember what the essence of the Star Bridge was. Looking at the Star Bridge that turned into a musical staff, many residents of God's domain were filled with great fear. 5 creative beings used their highest authority together. What does this mean? Is it true that the war is about to begin? Will the eternal peace of Endless God's domain never return again? If these 5 creators really go to war, then the entire civilization of Endless God's domain will regress, and countless parts of God's domain will turn to ashes in the war of creators. This is by no means an exaggeration. Each and every one of the 5 who sit atop the highest throne in the Endless God's domain possesses this kind of power. Long ago, these 5 beings made a secret contract that nobody knows the details of. Because of this, the Star Bridge system in Endless God's domain was able to be built. Without it, the concept of Endless God's domain would not even exist. The 5 creators each have different personalities and positions. Asha, the ruler of Northern God's domain and the mother of the Stellar Dragon clan, follows the principles of order and kindness. She has a good relationship with Ionia, the supreme god of Western God's domain. Many dragons are active in both of these gods' domains. In the Southern God's domain, the 2 creators lean towards chaos and evil. Nameless Lady prefers intelligent beings who deviate from order and is accepting of all criminals. Naya favors all kinds of monsters, creatures, and unnameable beings. She opposes Dragon God Asha and the Supreme God Ionia. The Lord of Kunlun, the ruler of Eastern God's domain, follows a principle of absolute neutrality, and has a mysterious and friendly relationship with the other 4 creators. In this way, the 5 creators have formed a unique state of balance. Most of the time, these 5 beings don't interfere with matters in Endless God's domain and don't even appear before people. The most powerful god, Ionia, has been missing in the pantheon for thousands of years. The all-powerful dragon god, Asha, started entering a routine sleep hundreds of years ago. The god Naya and the Nameless Lady of the Dark Abyss, even their subordinates don't know what they are doing or if they are still in the Endless God's domain. Only the Queen Mother of Kunlun God's domain has remained active, either pregnant or trying to conceive, not even caring about the affairs of the Sky Tower. The power of creator-level beings to interfere with the real world has been absent for thousands of years, and they no longer directly involve themselves in the creation of the real world. It seems like they have agreed that the mortal world belongs to mortals, the hero world belongs to heroes, and the legendary world belongs to legends. Chapter 1007, the most terrifying Azura arena. With their power to create, they don't need to interfere with the Endless God's domain. They just need to observe this vast world connected by the Star Bridge from their highest throne. With the existence of the Star Bridge, even if they don't think, the rulers of each god's domain will strive to expand their territory and illuminate more star charts. Ever since the Star Bridge system was completed, the territory of the entire Endless God's domain has expanded hundreds or even thousands of times compared to the era of the twilight of the Gods' War, and this trend is still accelerating. Initially, the Star Bridge was connected for a specific purpose, but it has now become the pillar that supports the civilization of Endless God's domain. Without the Star Bridge, the civilization of Endless God's domain would probably regress to the time before the twilight of the gods, with scarce resources and excessive dependence on external supplies. There may even be a danger of civilization extinction. The expansion of Endless God's domain is absolutely advantageous for the supreme dragon god Asha of the Order camp, the god of gods Ionia, and the nameless lady of the Chaos camp. Perhaps only the Queen Mother of the West, who is neutral and indifferent to the outside world, lacks interest in the spread of the Star Bridge. The Eastern God's domain is also the only God's domain that never invades others. In contrast, the lords of the Eastern God's domain like to constantly evolve their own God's domain. A medium-sized God's domain like the Sky Sword God's domain is a perfect example with its 17 legendary Sky Swords. However, all these rules are based on a certain understanding. Now, that understanding has been broken, and it was the supreme dragon god Asha, the lord of the Northern God's domain, who broke it himself. Just as a stone causes ripples, Asha's actions triggered an interception by the Lord of Kunlun, the Queen Mother of the West. Although she seems uninterested in expanding God's domain's territory, the Queen Mother of the West is very protective of her own type of God's domain, like a mother protecting her child. Asha wanted to take away the White Lotus Sword domain, but that was not acceptable. The interference of the Queen Mother of the West attracted the attention of several leaders of the Seven Towers, who then discovered something. Even though nobody could confirm the truth of this matter, even Dragon God Asha herself only had a vague feeling about it. But that was enough. Everything about that person was worth going to any lengths for. Asha felt this way. Ionia felt this way. Naya and the Nameless Lady felt the same way too. Well, the Queen Mother of the West said, "This has nothing to do with me. I just want to protect my White Lotus Sword domain, which is the only flower in the Eastern God's domain." In the middle of the White Lotus Sword domain, there is a hidden treasure space. The chain of Star Dragon, with as many as 13 rings, emitted a cracking sound under the unbearable weight. First, a pitch-black giant claw ripped apart countless chains and forcefully entered this shrinking confinement space. Su is here. Standing on the shoulder of a gigantic black monster, Su appeared with bare feet and a smile on his face. Are there any naughty children who want to eat Su's candy? Following that, a sky-blue sword light also severed a large number of chains as the chain of Star Dragon descended. Yunshi was overjoyed to see Lilibet, his first love and the guardian of the Sky Tower in the most ancient Sky Sword God's domain, wielding the Azure Excalibur. Her words might be able to accomplish something. Next, it was Zi Yuan, who Yunshi had only encountered briefly. She had a strange presence, her flowing robe transformed into a divine garment made of countless sharp blades. She appeared majestic and otherworldly, with black spider-like patterns on her forehead. No, with just one glance, Yunshi felt his hair stand on end. This wasn't the Zi Yuan he knew, but something more terrifying, more ruthless. Finally, appearing in a dazzling array of colors were the twin witches, known as the White Lotus Guardian of this sacred space, Red Lotus. However, at this moment, both of them had their eyes closed, holding hands, their breath almost still. In White Lotus' hand, a stone tablet appeared at some point. The tablet was inscribed with many names, each carrying the power of a deity. It was a treasure that only the supreme gods of Western God's domain could use, surpassing the concept of god weapons. 5. This is truly a delightful. Astaroth's breathing became incredibly rapid, not from nervousness, but from excitement, almost ecstatic. The 5 primordial beings chose 5 different coordinates as their vessels and descended upon the White Lotus Sword domain at the same time. Just a small part of their will has already caused enormous changes in the entire White Lotus Sword domain. The entire White Lotus Sword domain is transforming, except for the Water God Kingdom. 5 different powers of creation are modifying the world's laws in their own ways, occupying different regions of the White Lotus Sword domain. The most essential area of the sword, the blade, is claimed by the absolute home team, the Western Queen Mother. The White Lotus Sword Palace and the Sky Tower become her territory. The section of the sword's body is divided between Naya and the Nameless Lady, from the dark abyss of God's domain. The region of the sword's hilt becomes the domain of Asha and Ionia in God's domain. The Western Queen Mother's territory possesses the highest level of intelligent beings. Naya and the Nameless Lady's territory has the largest area. Asha and Ionia's territory has the highest population. Before the war began, the entire White Lotus Sword domain was already divided up, except for Hydra, the Water God's kingdom. There were no more private territories in the White Lotus Sword domain. Without a doubt, the 5 creators of the world all had their eyes on the White Lotus Sword domain and expressed their intentions. This is my land. From this moment on, the White Lotus Sword domain was no longer a small god's domain in the remote corner of Sky Sword God's domain. It became a treasure that the 5 creators of the world would fight over. The White Lotus Sword domain, which was about to be taken to the Northern God's domain by Asha, was now on the verge of collapse as it balanced amidst the power of the 5 creators, stopping in a certain star region in the center of Endless God's domain. Master, we need to prepare to run away. Meyer reminded Yunshi, who still had fantasies about the situation. If he didn't escape now, there would be no chance. The 5 creators of the world gathered together, and 4 of them were his ex-girlfriends. Yunshi finally experienced what it meant to have a super Azura field that could shake the Endless God's domain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Astaroth held abyssal condemnation with both hands, targeting all 5 enemies. This dark mark would be more magnificent than ever before. Be free, the power of endless desires. It's right now. Among the dark sword marks that span the heavens and earth, a flicker of starlight disappeared. Don't run. Don't even think about it. Stop. It's you, right? Chapter 1008. Even though it was surrounded by the dazzling brilliance of the chain of Star Dragon, that strand of starlight was so insignificant, and it was even hidden within the dark mark wielded by Astaroth. But when the 4 creators appeared at the moment the starlight appeared, they all made a move. The manifestation of the supreme dragon god Asha, Mumu Narabel, directly shot out his star hunter from his hand and let out a roar that shook the heavens and the earth. The lover's spear of Hunt. The manifestation of the god supreme Ionia, the twin witches, held hands together and wrote the language of the gods on the stone tablet that recorded the names of the gods. Seal, strike down. The manifestation of the Chaos Lord Naya, Su, transformed the giant sword in the hand of the black giant at his feet into the shape of a bow and shot out thousands of black arrows that pierced the sky in one breath. Track. The manifestation of the Nameless Lady, Zi Yuan, the 100-ghost sword, which was originally one of the divisions of the ghost sword, evolved into a slender blade over 3 meters long, the true form of the sky sword. As the blades danced, countless demons and monsters surged out from the open cracks, as if hell and the underworld had descended. This sentence is from a storybook, please translate it into English. 1. Well, only a certain Empress Shi Wangmu stood by and watched, feeling very pleased with herself. Master, you must endure. Meyer's heart was pounding as she was being hunted down by 4 powerful creator-level beings. Any one of them could easily squeeze the life out of this tiny little star sprite countless times. Luckily, the 4 of them stood united, even Supreme Dragon God Asha and the Almighty God Ionia, who were the closest allies among the 4, would never let go at this moment. They were 4 creators who joined forces, but their relationship was not simply adding 1 and 1 together. Instead, they contradicted each other and competed with each other in a chaotic way. Asha's shooting love gun was hit by Naya's pitch-black arrow hundreds of times. The creatures of Nameless Lady, more than half of them were sealed by the stone tablet of the Supreme God. The intermingling of 4 powers of creation ultimately gave Starchild, who was fleeing, a brief moment of respite. This is the hope that Meyer talked about. If someone is caught by one of these 4 ex-girlfriends, it's like being trapped in the chain of star dragon by dragon god Asha. There is absolutely no way to escape. But when all 4 ex-girlfriends arrived, a glimmer of hope emerged instead. The hope of breaking the deadlock was the conflict among the 4 of them, along with other variables. More golden crystals spread out, and the strongest demon king from the golden sea of chaos was not the least bit afraid, even when faced with 5 creator-level beings. The stronger the enemy, the stronger the desire for victory from within the heart. Like a string pulled to its limit, the pressure increases, causing Astaroth's the realm of infinite desires to boil even more. Reflected in this body is the blood of the demon king from the golden sea of chaos, cheering. Collecting the power attributes of 5 endless gods domain creator-level beings at once has an immediate impact on the growth of the realm of infinite desires. A frog at the bottom of a well can only see a small piece of sky at the well's opening during its lifetime. Mortals cannot escape the world in which they reside until death. The golden sea of chaos, located at the deepest level of the abyss, can contain all powers. No matter if it's a dragon, an angel, a deity, darkness, or even those unnameable things, the realm of infinite desires welcomes them all. Astaroth's demon king attribute is the ultimate demon king among demon kings. Her potential for growth is limitless. When the 4 creators joined forces, their powers clashed and cancelled out. But in that moment, Astaroth unleashed the strongest and craziest dark mark ever. This sword almost made the golden blood within her body completely evaporate. It was a sign that Astaroth's demon king power had reached its limit. Countless runes rearranged and danced, weaving scars on par with dividing heaven and earth. The jet-black scars were like the abyss itself. They first devoured Naya's dark arrows, then swallowed Nameless Lady's sinister creatures, instantly expanding more than tenfold. Finally, they broke through the rainbow light of the Ionia stone tablet and crashed onto the hunting lover's spear that posed the greatest threat to Yunxi. As the focal point, Astaroth unleashed a power at least 10 times greater than her own, perfectly illustrating the concept of leveraging strength and infinite imagination and creation. If the scoring system of the White Lotus secret treasure trial were still in place, this dark mark would undoubtedly receive a perfect score of 100. After all, it was a sword technique guided by the power of creation itself. Originally representing the Demon King's most fundamental sword skill, the dark mark was unexpectedly used by Astaroth with astonishing effects. This single move shattered the balance of the 4 primordial beings and also opened an escape route for Yunxi. However, just this is not enough. For the 4 creator beings who had activated a 7th of their respective star bridge's highest authority, the word defeat simply didn't exist in their dictionary. This sword from Astaroth only postponed the moment when a starchild would be captured. No matter if this strand of starlight is him or not, there is no mistake in killing and letting go. If I miss this opportunity, I don't know how long it will take to find another clue. Starchild, who has the blessings of the stars, is a target that cannot be captured by any fortune-telling or prophecy. All the prophecies about Starchild might be true, but it's more likely that they are completely wrong. About this matter, the 4 primordial beings have already attempted countless times. When it comes to the existence of the field they were in, it was expected to be all-knowing and all-powerful, but once it encountered the Starchild, this law would completely fail. The situation of Supreme Dragon God Asha. She used the highest dragon soul contract, trying to bind Starchild to her side. The contract stipulated that, no matter the era, his soul would always be with you. This is not a lie. The current Mumu is a part of Starchild's soul, so in a way, Asha truly has Starchild's soul as her companion every day. The condition of the Supreme Goddess Ionia. The highest wish spell, as long as you open your eyes, you can see the same stars as me every day. Similarly, it is not a lie. In Pantheon, the star bridge connects the star maps that perpetually accompany Ionia. No matter the era, she and he can see the same stars. The occasion of the Lord of Chaos, Naya. Without a contract or a wish, what Naya got was this kind of promise. As long as the abyss exists, our agreement will never change. That agreement, it's a secret. On this side of the nameless lady. The king is lonely and powerful. I believe one day you will become the most outstanding person. This tower, it is built for you. It will witness your greatness and glory. So, the nameless lady decided to constantly choose the strongest kings, letting the brilliance of the king tower shine throughout endless God's domain. Chapter 1009 Contract. Wish. Promise. Future. For creator-level beings revolve around the previous generation starchild and make different choices, but they all have the same outcome. None of them truly obtained the starchild. The starchild has a special connection with all of them, but it doesn't belong to any one person. A love-hate relationship. Sometimes far, sometimes near. He is within reach, yet his image always slips away. Confused and uneasy, the four creator-level beings, possessing the power of creation, malfunctioned for the first time. They couldn't be sure what he was thinking, what he was expecting. They could give him everything, but he never asked anything of them. He wanted the throne, the highest throne in all four directions of God's domain would open for him, north, south, east, and west. He wanted power, no kind of power would refuse him, whether it be the gates of heaven or the depths of the abyss, they would open for him. Throughout, they never truly understood what he desired. The seven towers, which constructed the civilization foundation of endless God's domain, connected the star bridges among the major God's domains. Starchild left contentedly, disappearing into endless God's domain. Or rather, he escaped. The last thing that happened was the scene seen by Yun Shi when he turned 16. It looks like the escape attempt failed. Now, he has to face the same difficult situation again. The only thing to be happy about is that, due to the rules of endless God's domain, the four former girlfriends didn't appear in their true forms, but instead used the power of the Star Bridge to choose their own avatars. And they are not completely certain that the starchild they are looking for is here. From this perspective, Yun Shi's disguise is still perfect. The starlight just now was just a decoy thrown out by Meyer. The real Yun Shi is still in a fused state with Astaroth. Former girlfriends, all four of them. Do they correspond to Mumu, Red Lotus, White Lotus, Su, and Ziyuan? Are they all chosen apostles? There is one more. She is the guardian of the Sky Tower, corresponding to the neutral Queen Mother of the West. Calmly analyzing the current situation, Yun Shi once again enters a state similar to when he was immersed in the battle god's Sand of Time with Cassina. Time has slowed down, as if at the bottom of the river of endless time. Countless threads of fate intertwine within the White Lotus Sword domain. The threads belong to the ex-girlfriends of the four creator-level beings. The threads belong to him and the future strongest demon king, Astaroth. The threads belong to the Queen Mother of Kunlun God's domain, Her Majesty Shi Wangmu. Oh, there are other threads too. Although they appear weaker compared to these creation beings, they contain a stunning power that is almost equal to the strongest demon king, Astaroth. That is his childhood friend. Hua Hua's thread. Even on this stage, Hua Hua is not a mere spectator, she has the power to intervene here. This is the first time Yun Shi directly observes the bloodline power of his unbeatable childhood friend, Hua Hua. That kind of power is currently hidden, but it has an unimaginable ancient feeling, as if it has existed for a very long time. In the perspective of Sand of Time, that power seems to trace back to the ancient times that are almost impossible to observe in the river of time. Thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, no, that is an era far beyond this concept. It was a divine era where the boundary between gods and humans was still unclear, where the highest of the gods and dragon god Asha walked on the earth, and Naya and Nameless Lady were in the distant past when they were still in the stage of outer gods. Huahua's bloodline is a legacy from that era, a past that has already disappeared in the current Endless Gods domain. The wings of soaring are not bound by any laws. Moreover, compared to the 5 primordial beings who have not come here in their true forms, Huahua's power is hidden within her own body. The power loss through the star bridge projected by the 5 primordial beings is approximately 100-1, with an unknown upper limit. The power loss controlled by Astaroth through the Golden Sea of Chaos is approximately 10-1, with the same unknown upper limit. Huahua had a hidden power within her blood, with no known limits or losses. Even though she had not joined the battle, like Astaroth, she was not under the control of the 4 creator levels. She simply had no reason to participate in the fight, so she stayed in a watchful state and had no intention of getting involved. If it's Huahua, Yunshi hesitated. He wanted to escape from this life-threatening situation, but he didn't know if he should involve Huahua as well. This is the previous generation Starchild, the problem that arose in his previous life. He didn't know what mistake he had made that caused all 4 of his ex-girlfriends to chase him. It would be unfair to involve innocent Huahua in this matter. However, if he were to be captured by his already gathered ex-girlfriends this time, Yunshi had a feeling that he might never see Huahua again, no matter who had him. This feeling was so strong, it could even be said to be an inevitable future. His ex-girlfriends from his previous life would chase after him to the ends of the earth, even to the corners of the universe. Huahua, are you watching? Through the gaps of the chain of Star Dragon, Yunshi saw 3 Zaka and an Huahua who seemed restless for some unknown reason. She didn't know what happened here, but she seemed to sense something. Should we say this is the telepathy between childhood sweethearts who like each other? Huahua didn't hear any sounds, but a wild instinct bubbling in her heart told her that something terrible had happened. On her special radar for Yunshi, 5 enormous red dots appeared, representing enemy units. These dots were so massive that they occupied almost the entire detection range of this fantasy radar. The targets represented by the 5 dots were unmistakably clear, visible through the shattered chain of Star Dragon. Twin witches who looked identical and had a great advantage. Despite being a half-human, half-dragon supergiant, Mumu possessed alluring contours and a majestic chest. Her sweet smile at the corner of her mouth made people instantly like the mysterious girl, Su. Ziyuan, the cold beauty as chilly as an iceberg, was surrounded by sinister creatures. And finally, there was Lilibet, wielding the Azure Excalibur, a crimson alarm raising to its highest level, causing Huahua's hair to stand on end. Little sheep, when did you get into so much trouble? Even if you flirt, there should be a limit. Huahua got angry, the mighty Dragon Emperor's sword roaring, and the dormant power of her bloodline began to shatter. Chapter 10:10 As the heir of the sky-soaring bloodline, Huahua had never revealed her full power. The closest she came to unleashing her power was the time when she and several childhood friends, including Yunshi, decided who deserved the title of Little She's closest childhood friend, through a game. One time, she called upon her ancestors and the powerful beings of the supreme dragon god Asha, the god of gods Ionia, the lord of chaos Naya, and the nameless lady from the same era in the battlefield of the game. It was a time that doesn't exist in any historical records of the Endless Gods domain, where there was no separation between humans and gods, and heroes with half-god bloodline and monsters from the divine era walked the earth together. It was a mythical era of the Endless Gods domain, where various fantasy species like fairies, dragons, and humans coexisted peacefully, order and chaos coexisted, and the gates of the abyss and heaven were simultaneously open. It was the earliest form of the Endless Gods domain. The civilizations of the various gods domains in the Endless Gods domain today are mostly the seeds spread by the intelligent beings of that era. Huahua's ancestors were one of the mysterious beings from that era, possessing wings that were beyond the confines of the world's rules, granting them freedom. Although they didn't possess the power of creation, they were not bound by the power of creation. They were a unique existence with unlimited freedom. Awakened within Hua's bloodline is the power of this ancestor with wings of unlimited freedom, a power that cannot be suppressed even by the power of creation. However, this power is incredibly strong, so strong that Hua cannot control it at all. Due to her inability to control her own power, Hua caused a great tragedy in the Western God's domain when she was a child. In that sad event, several races were completely destroyed, a god fell, and a small god's kingdom collapsed. Hua, who caused a great disaster, had to leave her hometown and come to a place called White Lotus Sword Domain, where nobody knew her. There, she learned how to control her own power and master the strength of her bloodline that can even kill gods. After making that mistake, Hua's people finally realized that they had failed in educating her. Children cannot understand how terrifying it is to possess such immense power. Because children haven't developed a proper understanding of right and wrong. They easily kill small animals, dissect them, and tear off the limbs of ants and grasshoppers just out of curiosity to see them struggle. They are not afraid of danger and don't even realize the consequences of getting into dangerous situations. This is exactly what happened with Hua's disaster. She was kidnapped by a certain group who tried to study the secrets of her bloodline. Following the rule of an eye for an eye, taught by her people, she fought back and killed them. However, her retaliatory power was too strong, resulting in wiping out the entire group. Next, the powerful group behind the organization considered Hua the demon's child and launched a judgment against her, sending out a fully armed army from the church to attack her. As a result, Hua, who had unleashed her own bloodline power, destroyed them all without any of them escaping. The alarmed church then used a sacred ritual to summon an ancient being believed in the god's domain, a legendary divine entity, to personally intervene against Hua. In the end, the out-of-control Hua also killed the ancient deity, causing the entire god's domain to collapse, leaving Hua drifting alone in the void. Even so, Hua didn't die, nor was she even injured. Anyone who tried to harm Hua was immediately counterattacked and eliminated by her. When Hua was young, she couldn't distinguish which enemies were must kill, which were ignorant fools, and which were even dumber than fools deities. Anyone who wanted to kill her was an enemy. Enemies should be completely destroyed, leaving none behind. This logic may be correct on the battlefield, but for young Hua, it's hard to accurately judge when to use how much power. The power in her bloodline is incredibly strong, so strong that once unleashed, it can even kill gods. Compared to the source of Hua's bloodline power, the so-called gods are just things that can be seen everywhere in the divine era. In the land of the divine era, fantasy crystals can be found in the form of crystal mines. Even mortals have the ability to forge god weapons, and some mortals have successfully killed gods with god weapons, replacing the gods themselves. Most of the earliest gods in the endless gods domain were born in that era, and many were just ordinary people before becoming gods. However, most of these gods fell during the twilight of the gods era, leaving only a few remaining. They were replaced by 5 creator-level beings who now dominate the endless gods domain in the new era. After the completion of the 7 towers, the 5 creator-level beings of the 4 quadrants gods domain ascended to the top of the stars. They ended the divine era and ushered in a brand new star bridge era. The history of the divine era has been erased from the endless gods domain by some invisible force. Except for some incredibly long-lived fantasy species that lived from the divine era to the star bridge era, humans who learn history from books have no idea what the precursor of the endless gods domain looked like. In the time before endless gods domain, known as the twilight of the gods, the history is like a mysterious box. Nobody knows what that time was like for the star bridge civilization. In the new era of endless gods domain, the existence of the 7 towers and the Star Bridge is taken for granted. They are the foundation of civilization, and people can't imagine life without them. The Star Bridge was blocked for less than an hour, and people in different gods' domains started to panic. They lost their connection with the outside world. The business and information exchange between different gods' domains nearly came to a halt. Every second the Star Bridge stopped working, the losses were enormous. Just 1 hour of blockage caused dozens of large business associations to suffer significant financial losses. Little She, you've really stirred up trouble with the wrong people this time. After assessing the strength of their rivals, Hua started to get a headache for the first time. If possible, she really didn't want to fight these people. But she had a strong feeling that she had to fight back. Little She was right there, surrounded by her rivals. This time, she is coming to save Little She. As for what happens next, we'll have to wait until we rescue Little She before we can talk about it. Oh, great ancestors! Please grant me true power. The sentence is from a storybook. Please translate it into English. The crumbling earth, the despairing sky, only prayers can save us, only faith can redeem us. Even if the angel's wings are stained, we will still soar to the sky, searching for the last glimmer of hope. The flying wings of Tianxiang bring the highest light of hope. Only those who grasp their own happiness can smile until the end. 1, 2, 3, a total of 6 wings extended from Hua's back, stretching leisurely into the endless void. Chapter 10-11 Hua released all the limitations in her bloodline. Since the incident in her childhood when she went out of control, she once again showed her ability to soar through the sky. In the center of God's domain, located in the east, south, west, and north, there was abnormal activity in a building closest to the White Lotus Sword domain's current star domain. The oldest tower, the Tower of Stars, which had never encountered any problems and didn't even have an owner, was temporarily activated. The already congested Star Bridge encountered an even more terrible accident once again. Describing the chaos of the Star Bridge system at the moment as adding insult to injury wouldn't be enough. Only the last 1/7 of the Star Bridge area was left for the goods and supplies of the major gods' domains. The astronomical amount of goods and information were all stuffed into this narrow pathway, completely clogging the already chaotic Star Bridge. Now, forget about the circulation of goods, even the exchange of information began to experience endless disconnections. The major gods' domains felt like they were back in the era of the twilight of the gods, isolated on their own islands. Hua, who awakened her bloodline power with Su, had no idea of the severe consequences she had caused, making numerous merchants cry in despair. She only knew one thing: she had to give it her all. No matter who the opponent was, Tianxiang bloodline would never admit defeat. Blue sky. Earth. Ocean. I stand for the supremacy of billions of lives, and my wings will surely cover everything. I am light, I am fire, I am the highest and holiest existence, with wings of freedom. Following the pulsation in her bloodline, Hua found that the process of unlocking this time went extraordinarily smoothly. Unlike the previous time, she was forced into a desperate situation by the sudden appearance of the gods, and only then did she unleash the power of her ancestral bloodline, causing irreparable consequences. Of course, even if everything started over, she wouldn't regret her decision to kill the god. However, it would be better if she could control her power better and not harm so many innocent beings. The reason why she felt so sad and depressed when she met Yunxi was because of the mistake she had made. Her killing of that deity caused the entire god's domain to collapse, and all the creatures living there faced a tragic end of days together. Both the deity and the church deserved to die, but along with them, the unknown people and the cute animals in God's domain were also buried, which made Hua feel very guilty. Every time she remembered this incident, Hua constantly reminded herself that it was a mistake, one that she could not change even if she regretted it. She killed many, many people, most of whom deserved it, but there were also some innocent people who were unaware of the truth, as well as completely innocent little animals. Actually, Hua Hua is the type who really loves small animals, so in her dreams, she used some of her power to bring these cute and joyful kids called Zaka into the real world. Hua Hua didn't want to have any more regrets, so she moved away from her own people and came to the distant White Lotus Sword domain to slowly learn to control the power within her body. In this journey, she met many, many people and gained friendship and love. She gradually immersed herself in this peaceful world, while waiting for the birth of the legendary White Lotus secret treasure and enjoying pretend play time with little Shi. For Yun Shi, having Hua Hua by his side was natural. She was his other half, the glorious Queen of Summer. For Hua Hua, she somewhat sensed the hidden power within Yun Shi's body and looked forward to him growing up, wanting to spend more time with him. The two innocent children liked each other, considering each other the most important person in their lives, but this caused them to hesitate in taking a significant step, remaining in a shy and blurry stage. Yun Shi knew he liked Hua Hua, but he was troubled because of the huge difference between them, even though that difference was just a disguise of Hua Yu, who had almost sealed his inherited bloodline power. Hua Hua knew she liked Yun Shi. She even used the ancestral power in her bloodline to secure a position closest to him. On the battlefield of love, she has always been the winner. Yun Shi was not someone she considered belonging to her, she never even thought about it. Always together with Yun Shi, no matter if it's the White Lotus Sword domain or the Sky Sword God's domain, or any other god's domain. As long as Yun Shi is there, she will be with him. Whether it's the ends of the earth or the corners of the sea. Whether it's heaven or hell. It was from Yun Shi that Hua Hua learned how to adapt to this world, how to show her excellence without causing tragedy like in her childhood. While others score 60, you can get 100, and everyone will envy you, seeing you as a goal and wanting to be friends with you. But if others score 60 and you get an impossible 900, then you're a monster, and no one wants to be near you, afraid and unable to look you in the eye. Initially, it was Hua Hua's display of forbidden power, an unpermitted stance, that triggered that event, leading to an irreparable tragedy. During the time spent with Yun Shi, Hua Hua learned how to blend into the world, how to smile and run together with the humans around her, freely enjoying it all. Ordinary love. Ordinary childhood sweetheart. Growing up together, watching him gradually fall in love with this version of herself. Only he, no matter how she changes, will accept her. If she can be with him, it doesn't matter what mission she carries in her blood. In this world, there are countless humans, and in the future, she will encounter gods, fantasy species, and even save the world. But for Hua Hua, there is no one who can compare to Yun Shi. He was the one who held her hand in the darkest times and brought sunshine into her life. Yun Shi was wrong. The shining queen of summer in his eyes was actually very fragile inside. If it wasn't for him, she would have fallen into a dark world long ago. Because of his reaching hand, her world was once again filled with radiance and hope for the future. Because Hua Hua knew there was a future with him, she boldly moved forward without any hesitation and bravely took on her responsibilities. The mistakes she made cannot be changed. But at least she would prove with her actions that her decision to continue living was correct and not a mistake. Life cannot be measured on a scale, but her strength can change the destiny of many more people. Just like now, when Hua Hua felt the danger of little Shi, she immediately and without hesitation released herself from all the burdens in her bloodline, responding to the heartbeat in her own heart. Perhaps it was on the day she met little Shi that she fell ill. The illness is called love. Chapter 10-12. Ever since the completion of the 7 towers, they had always been in a passive operational state, never interfering with the Tower of Stars, in the Endless God's domain. However, it suddenly started without any warning. Hua never expected to feel the presence of the tower after freeing herself from all the restraints in her bloodline. Even though she had no impression of this tower, she could clearly sense the power that continuously transmitted from it. Moreover, since the White Lotus Sword domain was brought close to the central star field of the Endless Gods domain by Asha, Hua instantly gained a tremendous advantage. None of the 5 primordial beings were currently located near the central star field. Even though the highest authority of the star bridge was activated, allowing for unlimited power transfer theoretically, there would still be losses during the transmission process. However, the upper limit of transmission was surpassed by the star bridge. Hua, who received support from the Tower of Stars, didn't have this issue at all. The Tower of Stars supporting her was the closest tower to her and was the earliest tower built among the 7 towers. I can do it. As long as it's for little she. I can do anything. Hua will never allow herself to repeat the mistakes of her past. Regretting to the point of questioning life, experiencing this once in a lifetime is enough. Moving forward without confusion, doing what one wants to do straightforwardly, choking tragedy in its bud. On that day, when she saw Yunshi's slightly apologetic eyes, it was this kind of decision that came from their childhood friendship. She dressed her own little she in great sword maid's attire and kept him by her side. If she hadn't done that back then, perhaps little she would have already left her. At that time she had such a strong intuition. Now, a similar intuition has appeared again. The 5 terrifying beings across from her, any one of them has the potential to take away her little she, especially the female with 3 ahog hair strands on her head. Hua's entire body shuddered at first sight. The enemy. The lifelong enemy. No matter what, can't let the enemy who wants to be with little she succeed. No matter who, she won't allow it. Whether it's a god, a demon, or anything else, little she belongs only to her. Childhood friends and first love, both are her victories, and she won't let anyone take away this pride. O great ancestors, grant me the power to shatter all tragic destinies. The future with little she is to be guarded by her. The Dragon Emperor's sword released a terrifying pressure that could shatter the heavens and earth. Even the legendary warriors would tremble in the face of this pressure, as it came from the King of Nightmares. However, any one of the 5 surrounding Astaroth at this moment is a terrifying presence surpassing the King of Nightmares. Even if the Dragon Emperor, who had turned into the King of Nightmares, were here, they would tremble and cower before these 5. Useless fool. Hua completely disregarded the poor performance of the Dragon Emperor's sword and infused her own willpower into this god weapon. Even a beginner's sword, with Hua's willpower at this moment, could transform into an unparalleled god weapon. The powerful Tyrant Dragon Emperor's sword, which was already strong, suddenly gained new life, even surpassing its own limits. Little she, I'm coming to save you. Different reasons and perspectives from Astaroth, but Hua had the same task to do. All 5 of those creation beings are enemies. Queen Mother of the West, I am innocent. Astaroth yearned for endless battles, unafraid even if she turned to dust, and she stood against the 5 creation beings. It was the highest stage she desired. Hua was determined to save and would not let her little she be taken away, especially by that seemingly cold and beautiful azure divine sword, who occasionally showed a lonely expression. As Yunshi's childhood friend, Hua knew that her little she had the least resistance to this type of person. Why pretend to be aloof? If you truly didn't care about anything, then don't reveal that gaze that seems to be waiting for something. Hua was too familiar with that gaze. It was the feeling of repulsion among the same kind. At that time, she rejected everyone and wandered lost in the town streets. The face she saw from the water stains on the ground was just like that. Although she longed for warmth, she had no idea what to do and closed herself off, wandering the lonely and unfamiliar streets like a zombie. If at that time, little she had not reached out to her, maybe she would have remained this way forever. Unable to distinguish right from wrong and with no future in sight, the whole world turned dark and lost all hope. Without that outstretched hand and the soft, delicious bread, she might never have become the confident and powerful Hua she is now. So this time, she must save little she. I will never let you fall into the hands of these people, let them see the power of the Skyblood lineage. Enormous wings spread behind Hua, forcefully breaking Supreme Dragon God Asha's chain of Star Dragon cage. It was Hua's attribute, the free wings that could never be confined by any cage. With the support of the Tower of Stars and the unlimited power of her own bloodline sleeping within her, Hua's fighting ability has reached an unimaginable level. In terms of individual fighting power, Hua had an absolute home field advantage. With the added advantage of undiminished strength from her own bloodline, she even surpassed all the convergers present at that moment. Hua's sword, therefore, became incredibly shiny. Transparent rings of light exploded above the White Lotus sword domain, like beautiful fireworks. Sky Soar. World-breaking slash. This is Hua's divine sword skill engraved in her bloodline memory, the awe-inspiring sky-flying sword that made Yunxi marvel. This move, it's not for people, nor for the military, but for realms. The endless wings of intersecting sword light, accompanied by the constantly exploding halo, forcefully turned the 13 rings, the chain of Star Dragon, woven by Supreme Dragon God Asha, into pieces. Endless starlight fell, shining on Astaroth, who was holding the abyssal condemnation and casting the dark mark in front of the 5 creators. In that moment, Yunxi felt a wave of happiness in his heart, knowing that the best chance to escape had arrived. How could I let you succeed? Not just Yunxi realized this, Asha, who had escaped from her hand by the Star Child time and time again, became furious. She voluntarily tore apart the star-hunting dragon's armor and ripped Mumu's body, turning her flesh into cursed chains. That is a forbidden spell called Star-Hunting Dragon Chains, which is even more advanced than the Chain of Star Dragon and still in development. Chapter 1013 Mumu is a special breed of dragon that has never been born in the history of the dragon clan. Everything about her, even the reason for her birth, has only one purpose: to hunt the child of the stars who cannot be foreseen or observed by any prophecy or divination power. All prophecies about the child of the stars are unreliable. No matter what results divination may yield, they can be overturned. The child of the stars is a special and marvelous being who excels in cheating on the scale of destiny and even altering the course of the starry sky. If you don't hold on to him firmly and keep him by your side, no one knows when he might suddenly disappear, fall in love with someone else, or have multiple love interests. Even though he is this kind of person, he always wears an innocent expression that makes people misunderstand that he hasn't done anything. Asha has suffered a great loss because of it. No one has truly captured his heart, and nobody knows who he really likes. It seems that everyone likes to surprise them unexpectedly. Every day spent with him is never boring, always discovering new worlds. How magical it is for Asha, who can even create worlds, to be with someone who has achieved the concept of creation. They are always smiling and happy together. She has forgiven him countless times, but he always continues to make mistakes and unintentionally provoke the wrong people. They maintain a certain distance from everyone, but always easily break that barrier and naturally enter their hearts. Clever, or rather deceptive. Although he almost never lies, the situation always escalates to unimaginable levels. In this world, it seems there is nothing he can't do and nothing he dares not attempt. At the same time, Ionia and Asha were friends with 4 powerful beings from the beginning of creation, and no one noticed anything wrong for a very long time. Ionia and Asha were even long-term allies. It wasn't just a sudden revelation, even Asha couldn't believe that the person they liked could be so deceitful. And the biggest problem was that Asha was completely unaware of the situation and even had an innocent expression when it was exposed. I am not playing both sides, everyone is good people, and I have had a really happy time with them. Yes, we have an agreement, but it's a secret. Even Asha couldn't reveal this secret. A promise is a promise, no matter if it's 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years, or even longer, it won't change. Who my favorite person is, that's also a secret. Oh, please don't get angry, Asha's angry face is really scary. When it became too much, they simply ran away. There were 4 creators in the beginning, and none of them chose their true love. It seemed like their true love was with someone else. Can you tolerate this kind of thing? Asha couldn't bear this anymore. Haonia, Naya, and the unnamed one couldn't bear it either. They finally joined forces and launched that chase, turning the entire Endless Gods domain upside down. Unfortunately, the result of that chase was a failure. He seemed to have anticipated the ending long ago. He wasn't caught by anyone and turned into countless scattered light gems. In that moment, Asha wanted to stop him. For this reason, she took away the most light gems. But the real him wasn't in any of the gems. In the end, she only used the portion she stole to give birth to Mumu, this unique star-hunting dragon. Mumu lived up to her expectations and showed incredible talent from birth. Without prophecy or divination, using the affinity of her own soul, Mumu found the White Lotus Sword domain in the lower region of the Sky Sword God's domain and sent a signal to her mother saying, "Dad might be here." Such a good child, truly deserving of being the star-hunting dragon she created. If at first she only had doubts, now Asha could almost be certain that person is right here in this White Lotus Sword domain. She could even almost smell his distinct scent. He appeared very kind on the outside, open-hearted to everyone, willing to accept anyone into his heart. This made people worry if his innocence would make him an easy target for manipulation. Possessing talents that would amaze anyone, beloved by the stars, he put in great effort to construct the 7 towers that connect to the Endless Gods domain, all because of a casual idea she had in the past. If all this belonged to her alone, it would be like a dreamlike romance that would bring even the dragon gods of creation into a blissful world of 2. The problem is, this fellow is a complete and utter fraud. The Star Bridge was not built solely for her. He made a promise to the other 5 creation-level beings as well and fulfilled it by completing this bridge to the stars. The 7 towers are the same. Except for the Tower of Stars and the Shadow Tower, all the towers in the eastern, southern, and western gods' domains are spoken for and have their unique connection to him. Perhaps the Queen Mother of the West is the only exception. Because she stayed at home all the time, busy with preparing for pregnancy, and being pregnant, working hard to expand God's domain of Kunlun. Clearly, he had relationships with many creation-level beings at the same time. His earliest partner, Ionia, even lived with him during the early stage of the Divine Era. The 2 of them also designed Pantheon together. The stone tablet symbolizing the power of the gods was one of his early works. However, no one doubted his promiscuity. This guy is unforgivable. Once I catch you, I won't let you have the chance to interact with any other gender, no, not even the same gender. Let your eyes only look at me. Let our world always be just the 2 of us. Let our footprints cover the Endless Gods domain starry sky. Say to me again, I like you, you are beautiful, Asha. As long as you can be mine, my one-of-a-kind treasure, I will forgive all your mistakes. This star-hunting dragon chains, I prepared it for you, it represents a token of love. Hiss. Yunshi was shocked to discover that this chain, transformed from the body of the star-hunting dragon, was unavoidable. It seemed like this chain itself, and even Mumu, were a part of him. Even though the brilliance of the stars had already fallen on the earth, Meyer's path of trials had connected to some place where the 4 creators' power didn't exist. Just a little more time and Yunshi would be able to escape. This move by Asha made Yunxi realize once again that even with the help of his childhood friend, the power of the creators was too unfair. They were prepared for the possibility of him escaping again. Asha revealed her secret weapon. The other three creators were not far behind. They all began to use their forbidden arts on Yunxi, who had entered the state of the stars. Chapter 10:14 The Seven-Colored Rainbow is my eternal longing. No matter where you go, you will see my beautiful rainbow. The ruler of God's domain in the Western world, the supreme god of the pantheon, Ionia, uses forbidden techniques that only the master of the colorful realms can use. Red, the color of fire, passionate, lively, and hot. Orange, the color of the sun, splendid, sweet, and joyful. Yellow, the sacred color, bright, pleasant, and shining. Green, the color of life, gentle, fresh, and peaceful. Blue, the color of the sky, wide, clear, and flawless. Blue, the color of the ocean, eternal, calm, and gentle. Purple, the enchanting color, noble, charming, and proud. The twin witches sang a special song that belonged only to the supreme god, praising and explaining the power to create the world held by Ionia, who was full of colorful light. Unlike the void dragon Asha, Ionia, the supreme god, had many mysteries. Even the powerful gods in her divine lineage knew very little about this supreme god of creation. The colorful divine magic she used was a unique symbol of endless God's domain. 7 colors intertwined into a strange ribbon, seeping into the starlight that enveloped Yunxi, as they traveled together towards the unfathomable distance. Want to run again? You liar! Sue crossed her arms and began to chant the ancient god's song, a forbidden spell infused with dark magic, used to nurture the existence of demons. Zazes, Zazes, Nasala Radat Zados. Zazes, Zazes, Nasala Radat Zazes. Zazes, Zazes, Nasala Radat Zazes. Hein, Long, Shirley, Sabine, Belina, Lagutia, Bidiella, Modoli. Ahua, Ya, Eguladamedos, Sado, Bexius, Aegeus, Islos, Uanu, Agula, Alphaneamica. These names are filled with great magical power. Each one is the true name of a demon, a gift prepared by Naya for the world. Well, let's consider this an experiment to see if these true names of demon gods, born in the depths of the abyss, can truly be brought forth. Traitor, unforgivable. This time, I won't let you escape. Compared to Naya's somewhat optimistic nature, Endonis, the nameless lady, had a much colder expression in her eyes. She embraces all the intelligent beings of endless God's domain and even the beings from beyond the stars, harboring all the criminals who have committed heinous sins with no place to escape. As long as they follow the rules of the City of Pain, no matter how great their crimes, the nameless lady possesses a heart that can embrace everything. Only one person is an exception, someone even the nameless lady has not forgiven, a great sinner. He deceived everyone, deceived the entire endless God's domain, while stepping on the ships of the 4 creators. What's more infuriating is that even so, he always wears a face of innocence and kindness. No one understood what he was thinking or why he built the 7 towers, which connected the several ancient beings who used to live completely separate, even hostile, lives. If the Star Bridge is the hub connecting endless God's domain, then it is the line connecting the 4 ancient beings. The balance of endless God's domain now relies on a very delicate premise, and without him causing chaos, endless God's domain would not exist. Whether he is alive or dead, nothing can change what he has done. Even if I forgive all the evil in this world, I will not forgive you. Even if I forgive all the sinners in this world, I will not forgive you. I will not believe every word you say, even if they are all true. Your sins cannot be forgiven, even until the end of time and space. Only I have the authority to determine your fate. Condemnation, symbol. The fairy queen looked this way, then looked that way, showing that she didn't want to get involved in this matter and just wanted to mind her own business. Talking about love and romance is one thing, but being pregnant and having a baby is a different kind of happiness. Well, that's how it is. That someone, because they tried to please too many people, ended up completely failing this time. TSK, getting marked by 4 ancient beings at the same time, that's a surefire way to be doomed, even if you escape to the ends of the earth. Yunshi also complained non-stop. All of this happened in just a split second. From Meyer embarking on the journey to conquer the stars, to his escape from the treasure web of the 4 ancient beings, it may not have taken even a tenth of a second. But in that tenth of a second, he was consecutively cursed and blessed by the 4 ancient beings. Yes, indeed. According to their different styles and manners, the 4 ancient beings each bestowed different marks. The ruler of the northern god's domain, the supreme dragon god, used a power called the star-hunting dragon chains to tear apart his own daughter and turn her into chains that bound Yunshi. Yunshi said that this gift was really big and too heavy. The ruler of the western god's domain, the divine being Ionia, used a power called the rainbow ribbons, which formed a colorful ribbon that permanently became a part of Yunshi's body, becoming a legendary accessory. Both of these are blessings. The rulers of the southern god's domain, by coincidence, used curses. The master of chaos, Naya, used a forbidden spell called the Black Bible, with dozens of names that were all names of demons born from the depths of the abyss, some even terrifying demons with the potential of becoming demon gods. These names, Yunshi couldn't forget them even if he wanted to. Without needing to change his occupation, Yunshi had already become a qualified hero-ranked demon summoner. The forbidden spell used by the nameless lady is called the Mark of Judgment. This mark is known throughout the endless god's domain, representing how terrible the crimes Yunshi committed are. Anyone who sees this mark has the responsibility to chase and kill Yunshi to the ends of the earth. If Nameless Lady can capture Yunshi and bring him back to the prison in the City of Pain, she will give him the highest reward ever seen in Endless God's domain. The 4 marks represent the different personalities of the 4 creators. Asha's chain symbolizes the courage of persistence and never giving up. Ionia's ribbon symbolizes the highest wisdom and mystery. Naya's black holy scripture symbolizes the temptation towards the abyss. Nameless Lady's condemnation guide symbolizes the ultimate judgment of order. Well, let's not bother with the Kunlun god's domain, she is just a bystander. Yunshi, with the 4 major marks, even feels that his body cannot bear the power carried by these marks, and is heading towards collapse. Does "can't live for more than 3 months" mean this? Teacher Cassina, why didn't you tell me earlier, so I could have some mental preparation before I die? Now, I am really going back to the embrace of the stars. Chapter 10-15 Master, we can't escape completely, we have to abandon a part. Meyer struggled to continue moving the trajectory of the stars, to shield against the tracking and hunting by the 4 Genesis-level beings. Even with the protection of the will of the stars, the situation of this trial transfer is still too terrible. What does it mean to abandon a part? Yunshi couldn't understand at all. Well, it means literally that you need to separate a part of your body, to create something similar to a clone. There will always be a chance to come back and retrieve it in the future. For now, we can only temporarily move the main body away and stay away from the White Lotus Sword domain. Meyer also felt heartbroken because her planned Star Spirit Squad was still at the White Lotus Sword Palace. The 4 terrifying Genesis beings from the Endless God's domain intervened and completely disrupted her training plan, hoping that during her absence, the Star Spirit Squad she built from scratch could grow according to the planned route. Okay. With the courage of a brave knight, Yunshi agreed to Meyer's plan and began their journey of escape, just like a gecko shedding its tail. This clone will have most of your traits, but it is not you. Because I need to continue staying in the Starwings Nights, let's decide to be a girl. In such a short time, Meyer couldn't possibly finish the more complicated settings. She simply copied the character, May, from the Starwings Knight's eyes and then immediately started preparing for Yunqi's split. The sentence from the storybook can be translated into English as, they sacrificed Yunqi's waist-length hair and combined it with a portion of his soul. The final result was a beautiful girl with pitch-black hair and pupils, possessing a mysterious aura similar to that of a doll. Pafu. Yunqi's pet Pafu also conveniently began to split, separating into two parts. The main part followed Yunqi as he fled towards the depths of the starry sky, while the remaining part stayed inside the clone. In this way, even the disguise of the chest part is seamless, and no one can tell the difference between this Mei and Yunqi. With this disguise, Yunqi can still maintain the identity of Mei, even if he escapes from White Lotus Sword Domain, and even has the ability to spread the seed network. To develop more seed members for the Master, the evaluation criteria are: even in such a hasty escape, Meyer never forgets her mission as a star spirit and secretly sets a secret door for Mei, who stays here. The Master's passive personality is like an illness that needs to be cured. The Starwings Knights need expansion, and more expansion, collecting more life seeds to make the Master stronger. At least, in the face of this ordinary situation, there is a need for the ability to escape faster and not be marked by those 4 terrifying ex-girlfriends. Yunqi's body gradually decomposes, with most of it becoming part of the starlight and escaping, while a part similar to ashes falls to the ground of White Lotus Sword Domain. In this sense, Yunqi has died here once, at the cost of his own life, triggering this trial of the stars in the real world. The great escape of the children of the stars has officially begun. No. Why do I feel little she is going? Yunqi's body split, turning into starlight, and Hua Hua couldn't help but burst into tears. It was anger and unwillingness to watch their beloved person being threatened and forced to disappear in front of them. It was frustration, feeling powerless, unable to rescue him from the hands of those terrifying beings. She couldn't protect her little she. It's all your fault. If only I had stronger power. Even the Milky Way could tremble, with the power to win against everyone here, little she would never disappear. You are the enemy. With all 6 wings spread open, Hua Hua combined her strength to remember the aura of everyone who forced her lover to flee, and she unleashed the strongest sky-soaring world-breaking slash to date. All the chain of Star Dragon cried out loudly together, and the entire White Lotus Sword Domain was sliced in half by this sword energy, splitting the sword domain into 2. At this moment, the Queen Mother of the West, who felt indifferent about the matter of the children of the stars, finally took action. It's one thing to see that unlucky deception-prone child of the stars being punished by his 4 former girlfriends, but when it involves the White Lotus Sword Domain, it's another matter. She doesn't care about the life or death of that child of the stars, since he brought it upon himself. But the White Lotus Sword Domain is different. The Queen Mother of the West, with her nurturing nature, loves and protects all of the gods' domain in the Eastern gods' domain as her own children. This is also the reason why she and Lilibet, the wielder of the Ancient Order, the guarding Sky Sword God's domain, get along so well. You can flirt and fight, and it's fine to have fun with each other, but don't touch my White Lotus Sword Domain. This is Kunlun's Queen Mother of the West's attitude in this epic-making battle. Hua Hua's determined sword strike finally provoked the Queen Mother of the West. At the same time, it also attracted the attention of 4 other primordial beings. Because Hua Hua's timing with this strike was impeccably good. The perfect interception of their notice trail of the children of the stars caused them to lose awareness of their own marks immediately after making them. The brilliance of the stars fell, and Hua Hua held her sword to block Yunqi's escape route, facing 5 powerful beings with a stern expression. The Tower of Stars. Asha, who was familiar with the fluctuations of the children of the stars, was the first to perceive where the familiar yet unfamiliar fluctuations on Huahua came from. It's the sixth person. The supreme god Ionia looked at Huahua in confusion. At this moment, Huahua was in a fully awakened ancestral state with 6 wings, radiating like a dazzling sun, not afraid of even the most powerful beings. That fraudster has made the same mistake again, this big fraudster. Naya pouted her little mouth, looking at the naive girl as if she saw her past self, who had been tricked with lollipops. Why does it always happen that someone falls for the same trick? The lady's forehead veins popped out, and they noticed that there was a new tower master of the 7 towers in Endless God's domain. It seemed like a prank by that guy. The faint waves emanating from Huahua were not unfamiliar to the 4 creators. It was the wave of the Tower of Stars, which is the oldest or closest to the source among the 7 towers. I don't know who you are. And I don't need to know where you come from. Now, I declare that you are my enemy. Watching her lover disappear in a flash of light, Huahua felt a sadness she had never felt before in her entire life. A crazier and more terrifying rampage than when she was young began. This battle was destined to shock the entire Endless God's domain and make even the stars tremble. Chapter 10:16 You. How dare you? To him, to do such a thing to me. Huahua cried, allowing the power of her bloodline to completely go out of control. Pain, piercing through the heart, like countless sharp blades tearing apart her soul. When she was young, surrounded by those adults, sent to the experimental platform by the malicious church, ultimately going berserk in fear, that was Huahua's lifelong scar. But now, compared to losing her beloved, that little bit of unease and fear is simply not worth mentioning. Weak and powerless, how laughable, clearly having made a vow long ago, no matter what, she must protect her beloved little she, always staying together, never separating no matter where they go. Now, she broke her promise. Knowing that little she was right there, but even with all her strength, she couldn't change his fate of disappearing. She could feel, through the hair on top of her head, the lingering and painful feeling of separation before little she disappeared. The power of Tianxiang's bloodline surpassed the limits of the legend ranked, soaring towards a higher world. Breaking all shackles. Having wings of infinite freedom. Despite that, she still couldn't save little she, couldn't change his fate of disappearing. Needing even stronger, more powerful strength. The power to make little she never cry, to never disappear in front of her. Already, there is nothing to be afraid of. Little she lost her world, losing all colors in her eyes. All restrictions and oppressions are no longer there. Faced with the 5 terrifying opponents, Huahua completely unleashes the power of her ancestors in her blood. At this moment, a familiar aura spreads from Huahua, even to the 4 creators. It's the taste of the divine era. The 7 towers and Star Bridge were not yet established in the Endless God's domain. Even the concept of Endless God's domain didn't exist. Each world was in an independent state, and only the legend ranked could freely travel through the stars. In that era, the 5 creators were already at the top of this starry sky. However, they didn't interfere with each other's actions, and each world was like isolated islands in the starry sea, in a closed state. In that era, Supreme Dragon God Asha, the God of Gods Ionia, the Lord of Chaos Naya, and the Nameless Lady didn't have as many intersecting paths as they do now. Similarly, in that era, there were also special beings with powers that were close to or even comparable to theirs. That being with 6 wings, who could freely fly in countless worlds, was one of them. However, didn't she die in the Twilight War of the Gods, and was the first to be confirmed dead? The Tower of Stars reacted to her, could it be? Even the judgment of the threads of destiny has been wrong. This eerie phenomenon has only been seen in one person by the 4 primordial beings. Any observable, determinable fate becomes chaotic and unclear once it is connected to him. Only he cannot have his future determined at all. Viewing the future as countless paths, she, as a primordial being, can basically choose the future she needs and determine the fate of the world. It is a kind of trend, like how an increase in clouds can cause storms and lightning, or how the accumulation of the Earth's energy will eventually result in volcanic earthquakes. It is a relationship similar to causal determination. The existence of creation is easily visible and has a great influence. It can be said that it is the ultimate embodiment of the deduction system. Even a grain of sand in the world cannot escape their calculations. However, in this world, there is something unreasonable called variables, and there is a creature called the Child of the Stars. His appearance challenges the understanding of the existence of creation, creating countless incredible miracles, rendering all their solid predictions useless. Even though the world is on the brink of destruction, he has a way to save it. No matter what strange methods he uses, he can do it. Miracles are not a very unlikely probability for him, but rather a goal that will definitely be achieved as long as he tries. The Seven Towers. Star Bridge. This is knowledge that none of the four creators of existence have ever possessed, and its structure has not been fully deciphered to this day. The four of them, along with the Queen Mother of the West, each obtained the highest authority of one of the Seven Towers, but they have never fully grasped the operational principles of the Seven Towers. Even with the power that existed since the beginning of time, it still requires a tremendous amount of energy to instantly cross billions of galaxies. The Seven Towers and Star Bridge he built can even allow ordinary people to achieve this miraculous feat, becoming the cornerstone of the endless God's domain civilization. At this moment, before them, the figures that should have fallen during the gods' twilight war appeared once again. Her death was the signal that initiated the gods' twilight, the origin of countless divine beings' downfall. Why did she, who was supposed to be completely gone, reappear? No matter how you think about it, there is a problem in all of this. The problems that even the power of creation cannot explain can only point to one person, and only he can accomplish this kind of miracle that even the power of creation cannot. Perhaps, a long, long time ago, he foresaw this future. No matter the extremity faced, he will always find a way to escape. Mingming never tells lies, but always manages to deceive people. It was the most chaotic, wicked, and infuriating scammer in the history of endless God's domain. On that day, Robin, covered in blood, saw one of the futures she had foretold actually come true. The weeping young girl swung a huge sword taller than her body, with 6 wings unfurled behind her, madly cutting down the stars. With each swing of her sword, countless stars vanished, even when facing 5 creators of existence. She no longer cared about the consequences, having lost her beloved. Hua, broken-hearted, was terrifying, unstoppable, and unreasonable. With the support of the Tower of Stars, the Soul's central star field sanctuary, and after unleashing all the power of her bloodline, Hua entered an unprecedented field. Even the ancestors of the divine era would not be more powerful than the out-of-control Hua at that moment. She was burning her own life to seek revenge on the 5 legendary beings who made her lover disappear. Queen Mother, I am innocent. The sword came out, stars fell, everything collapsed, as if it were doomsday. On this day, those who luckily arrived near the center of God's domain witnessed the most terrifying battle after the twilight of the gods, the legend ranked. On that day, the spectrums of the 5 star bridges became chaotic and eventually broke one by one. The brilliance of the star tower once illuminated the entire central star field, but eventually dimmed. In this war, there were no winners. All the legendary beings entered a mysterious silence after that day. This battle became known as the Fall of Stars. The reasons, process, and outcome of the war were unknown, ultimately becoming an unresolved mystery in the history of the endless God's domain. Chapter 10-17 Central Star Field. Amongst endless shards of stars, Hua stood alone, leaning on the nearly broken Emperor Dragon sword, watching as 4 distant lights disappeared into the distance. With the absolute advantage of the home field and the support of the Star Tower, she successfully defeated each of their incarnations. The first to be defeated was the supreme dragon god Asha. In order to set up the chain of Star Dragon, and with her own incarnation, Mumu Narabel, transformed into the star-hunting dragon chains and bound to Yunxi, her incarnation was the first to perish under Hua's sword. The second one to disappear was Nameless Lady. Her incarnation, Ziyuan, was the weakest among the 4 primordial beings. After her ghost sword was shattered by Hua's Emperor Dragon sword, she also vanished. The third one to lose was Naya. Her incarnation was not adept at fighting, and the temporarily summoned berserker was chopped into pieces by the enraged Hua, forcing her to retreat. The fourth one was not defeated by Hua, but voluntarily left the battlefield. These twin witches, possessed by the god of gods, Ionia, seemed to believe that continuing the fight was meaningless and separated cleanly from the god of gods. Unlike the previous 3, the illusion of the god of gods, Ionia, looked at Hua with a hint of doubt in her eyes, but mostly with a smile, as if reuniting with a friend she hadn't seen in a long time. Unfortunately, Hua, consumed by fury, was incapable of conversation. Hua was exhausted after defeating 4 powerful creatures from the beginning of creation. The opponent in front of her was the most dangerous enemy she had ever encountered among all the powerful beings. Lilibet, the blue sword goddess, was the manifestation of the Queen Mother's power in Kunlun God's domain. Only then did Hua start to regain her composure. Hua's incredible feat of single-handedly defeating 4 powerful creatures would surely make her name known throughout Endless God's domain. Although they were only manifestations of power sent through the star bridge and not the real beings themselves. Despite the full awakening of her ancestral power and the support from the Star Tower, Hua had reached her limit. Facing a powerful being of creation with almost limitless power, even Cassina the battle god wouldn't dare claim a guaranteed victory. If it wasn't for the central star field and Hua's relentless unleashing of her celestial power, the chance of victory would be less than 1 in a billion. Only here, within the range of the Star Tower, could Hua, with her awakened celestial power, achieve this incredible miracle. She even managed to harm the 4 powerful beings by destroying their manifestations. Asha, Naya, and the Nameless Lady got hurt. Ionia voluntarily left the stage. With the concept of a world-class existence, this was just a tiny, insignificant injury, and most of it wasn't caused by Hua's mighty Dragon Emperor sword, but by the aftermath of a forced disconnection of the Star Bridge. It will probably only take a few short years for this injury to completely disappear. This is the result of Hua defeating them after they connected the descending body with the highest authority of the 7 towers without permission from the Star Tower. The system known as the 7 Towers, created by someone, unexpectedly proved to be very effective at this moment, even causing trouble for the 4 founding beings. On the empty fragments of the stars, only the last, and perhaps the strongest, opponent remained, at least for Hua. The chosen person by the Queen Mother of the West, and the only one among the 5 supreme beings who has never harmed Yunxi. The 3 clusters of ice-blue hair on Lilibet's forehead stood tall. She was not involved in the battle between the 4 creator beings and Hua's falling stars just now. Unlike the other creatures that were almost completely dominated by the 4 primordial beings, Lilibet, the wielder of the Azure Divine Sword, still maintained her sense of self. This is also related to the character of Empress Suwangmu, the ruler of Kunlun God's domain. She is a very peace-loving person who avoids violence whenever possible. Her greatest hobby is giving birth to various fantasy species. Being extremely nurturing by nature, she has acted as a surrogate for many special beings and has a good relationship with the 4 primordial beings. She is the only tower master of the 7 towers in the endless god's domain who has good relations with both the side of order and the side of chaos. Kunlun god's domain, where she resides, has always been in a secluded and mysterious state. It cannot even be observed, so naturally it doesn't have any disputes with the outside world. Unless it encounters situations like Asha trying to snatch the White Lotus Sword domain, she will not appear. Even now, when Huahua destroyed millions of stars, she has no intention of intervening against Huahua. Anyway, those stars are lifeless objects, like decorations in the endless void. Even 1,000,000 of them combined are not as important as a small-scale god's domain with fatality. Ha, ha, ha. Huahua gasped heavily, in a state of extreme weakness that Yunshi had never seen before, which was slowly overtaking her body. Defeating the arriving forms of the 4 primordial beings consecutively drained almost all of Huahua's life force. Even the Dragon Overlord sword was almost shattered by Su's Berserker. If it weren't for the Tower of Stars continuously supplying power to the trembling Huahua, she probably wouldn't even be able to stand right now. But she still couldn't fall down. Because the strongest enemy has always been there. Just by looking at her, Huahua felt a strong sense of rejection, the best explanation for the repulsion between similar species. The sky-blue divine sword Lilibet resembled her when she was young. The same loneliness. The same solitude. The same seeming to wait for something, but keeping others at a distance. Little She couldn't possibly ignore her words, this was the perfect image of Little She's first love. Huahua used to be like this too, and noticed that Lilibet's gaze was becoming stranger and stranger. In a land far away, there were 5 enemies. Only this enemy didn't lay a finger on Little She. The 4 other enemies who were scared away by her were not even close in comparison to this one. If they were considered Little She's ex-girlfriends, then this one was the most likely to have cheated on her. The wild radar emitted a bright green light towards Lilibet, and the symbol was a glaring red. That indifferent expression, deep eyes, and beautiful braids were all Little She's favorite type. Leave this place, and never come back to the Eastern God's domain. Whether it was Lilibet or the Queen Mother of the West, they had no intention of fighting with Huahua. Protecting order doesn't mean killing without mercy. Lilibet was never a bloodthirsty sky sword, her sword was as clear as her eyes, emitting pure and steady divine sword energy. Even in death. I will not listen to you. Huahua once again raised her Dragon Emperor sword. Proud as she was, she would not even let go of her sword in the end. Because her battle was not yet over. Chapter 10:18 Amidst the countless stars, a young girl knelt halfway up the high platform of the palace, praying towards the endless night sky. Oh, morning star, please bring us hope. I am willing to give everything I have to change the fate of this country. Whatever it may be, if you can hear my wishes, please respond to me. Just as if the girl's prayers were felt, the night sky suddenly underwent a change, and a shower of shooting stars came down upon the sky of this world. Sister, sister, look, shooting stars, shooting stars. A little girl dressed in a princess dress, as adorable as a doll, excitedly ran over to the girl with a worried expression, and tugged at the hem of her dress. Ah, it's a shooting star. The girl stood up and watched the trail that continuously crossed the sky with her little sister. Wow, so amazing. I've never seen so many shooting stars before. The young girl couldn't take her eyes off the colorful trail symbolizing the stars, her face filled with satisfaction. Sister, let's make a wish. Didn't Mom and Dad say that if we make a wish on a shooting star, our wishes can come true? The older girl's eyes welled up with tears. Yes, if Father and Mother were still here, they would surely hold her and her sister, and together they would make wishes on this rare meteor shower that might only happen once every 100 years. Unfortunately, that had already become a permanent thing of the past. The younger sister still didn't know, their country had encountered such a cruel fate, and their status as princesses was about to disappear. "What is your wish?" The older sister gently touched her sister's forehead and whispered softly. "I hope that all the people in the world can live friendly and peaceful lives." The younger sister folded her hands together and made a lovely wish. "Peace. Is it possible?" Sister looked complicatedly at a place about 100 kilometers outside the royal city. There were a large number of metal armors that were incompatible with the style of this kingdom, as well as several towering spires. This country is currently at war with its neighboring country. Not long ago, the king and queen personally went to the front lines, leading the kingdom's last trump card, the Royal Knight Order, to fight to the death against the opponent's magic army legion. They will never come back again. The kingdom's final resistance has also become history, with only this ancient royal city, said to have existed since the divine era, struggling to survive under the protection of an eternal barrier. However, even as a heritage of the divine era, the royal city cannot exist independently. Without enough food and no troops coming to rescue, surrendering is just a matter of time for the royal city. As the last bloodline of the royal family, she, the princess, no, she should be considered the queen, has long become the bargaining chip for the nobles in the city, ready to surrender the city. Now, she can still barely protect her younger sister, waiting for the judgment of fate in this final tower. After tonight, the legion that surpasses the imagination of the ancient kingdom will arrive at this relic of the divine era and accept this powerless royal city. Dawn, for the world it is the hope of a new beginning, but for her and her sister it is the start of losing everything. Peace, without enough power to protect the nation, how can there be peace? This country will cease to exist after tonight. Empire, the headquarters of the first Magic Army Legion. Soldiers jumping down from brand new magic armor, laughing and feasting, even the monitoring troops turn a blind eye, allowing this battle-tested army to vent their emotions. Just a day ago, they completely annihilated the kingdom's Knight Order established in the final period of the Divine Era, while only causing less than 10% damage to the armor and a 3-digit loss in personnel on this side. It can be said to be a resounding victory. This is the limitation of the era. The steel-heavy cavalry, once hailed as the strongest in the world after the Divine Era, encountered magic-armored legions that weigh more than tens of tons and can be operated by trained ordinary people. Only the result of being completely destroyed remains. The 10% battle damage and the deaths of 3-digit personnel were mostly caused by the hero-ranked knights on the other side, including the king and queen who inherited the knight bloodline from the Divine Era, who were the last of this country. After this battle, the Empire's unstoppable trend of unifying the continent had begun. As long as we obtain a large amount of resources from the last legacy city of the Divine Era, more and stronger magic armor will continuously be produced. It's only a matter of time before the Empire conquers the tough pieces of land in the northern part of the continent. Knights and magic are ancient relics from the past. The era of ordinary people has arrived. With the power of magic armor and our well-trained Imperial soldiers, it's only a matter of time before the Empire controls this continent. Now, the royal city of the Divine Era is right in front of us, even though the war has long ended. Tomorrow, the first Magic Army Legion will proudly enter this legacy city of the Divine Era and harvest the sweet fruits of victory. The final glory of the Divine Era bloodline is about to come to an end in this era of ordinary people. Just when everyone was drunk and the officials overseeing the army were losing their balance, they saw the sky on fire. It was clearly nighttime, but the intense radiance turned the entire sky an unnatural orange-red, as if the entire atmosphere had been ignited. A complex object of unknown shape, resembling a falling star from the sky, was drawn towards the Imperial First Magic Army Legion's base by the aura of Divine Era relics. What is that? Is it a shooting star? For the people of this world, everything beyond the atmosphere is unknown. No one has ever crossed that area and reached the observable starry world. The reason is that the atmospheric structure here is very unique. While it protects this world, it also imprisons its inhabitants on the ground. Despite reaching a civilization capable of building magic armor, people here know nothing about the sky above their heads. This is a world following the extinction of the gods' domain civilization, a planet not connected by any star bridges, with no star maps recorded by the endless gods' domain. In the history of this world, there is no record of what happens when a meteor passes through the atmosphere and falls to the ground. So when the soldiers of the First Magic Army Legion saw the meteor falling towards them, they were in awe of the splendid scene. It was not until the crimson meteor was close by that they realized what it was. Unfortunately, everything was too late. The earth broke easily like a cracked eggshell. A red mushroom cloud thousands of meters high rose from the ground, and the enormous shock wave swept the land, carrying a heat that could melt steel, causing a chain reaction. The Empire, which had been proud of itself for recently defeating the kingdom's last Royal Knight army in the First Magic Army Legion, instantly burned to ashes like a piece of paper thrown into a fireplace in the face of this catastrophic impact. After the end of the divine era in this world, a long-awaited visitor arrived. Chapter 1019. This day was destined to be recorded in the annals of this world. However, the people of this era could not possibly imagine what this day's events truly meant for this world. That was actually a much bigger event than the destruction of the Empire, the most powerful empire in this continent, equipped with the latest magic armor, and renowned as the invincible First Magic Army Legion. Sister, sister, a star fell down. The youngest princess of the kingdom tightly held onto her sister's skirt, with a puzzled and bewildered look in her eyes as she watched the mushroom cloud slowly spreading 100 kilometers away. Even though they were separated by a distance of 100 kilometers, the entire capital city was still protected by the Divine Era Heritage's protective barrier. Both of them could still hear the loud explosion coming from afar and witness the orange shockwave continuously expanding like a firestorm. Soon, the impact arrived. Despite being shielded by the magical barrier of the Divine Era Heritage, the capital city was filled with terrifying hot winds. It was unimaginable what kind of hellish scene the central area, 100 kilometers away from the explosion, would be like. Is it an earthquake? It's so hot, how can it be this hot in the middle of the night? Could it be that the army from the Empire violated the agreement and has already launched an attack? Look, the sky is burning. It was supposed to be the darkest time before dawn, and almost all the residents of the city were asleep. They had already received the news that the nobles had decided to surrender and that the city would not be dragged into the war. The cost is that the royal family must give up everything, and the last two princesses of the Divine Era royal family will become captives of the Empire and be taken back to the Empire. Sacrificing the two princesses can save this city with hundreds of thousands of residents. Isn't this an obligation that the royal family should naturally fulfill? With this kind of mental preparation, the residents of the royal city have basically accepted the upcoming First Magic Army Legion of the Empire. The hardliners who refuse to accept this situation have long been defeated in the tragic wars between the kingdom and the Empire. After finally launching a decisive battle against the Empire with the Royal Knight Order but being completely wiped out, the people of this country have basically given up resistance. Even if they want to resist, this royal capital cannot muster a decent army anymore. All the elite troops have been completely annihilated along with the Royal Knight Order, and only the elderly, weak, sick, and civilians with no military training are left. Frankly speaking, except for the magic barrier that can only be opened by the Divine Era bloodline of the kingdom, the defensive strength of this royal capital is almost zero. The complete annihilation of the Royal Knight Order, which was entrusted with all hopes, is also a sign of the collapse of this country. At this point, no one believes that the kingdom has any hope of resisting the invasion of the Empire. Reality is not a fairy tale, and there are no miracles. What is that? The last princess of the kingdom, the controller of the Divine Era magic barrier, can only release the control of the barrier after dawn and trembles in anticipation of the humiliation that awaits her. I have never seen such a thing. Even in the Divine Era, such things were only legends. This world is completely closed off. Any meteor that comes close to it will burn up in the outer atmosphere, creating a beautiful meteor shower. No meteor that has fallen to the ground has ever been recorded. But she saw it, she really did. She saw a meteor falling from the sky and landing right in the headquarters of the Empire's first magic army legion. As the last bloodline warlock of the Divine Era in this country, she even witnessed how the Empire's 3 mobile towers were blown away like blocks and melted. For this country, it was a nightmare. The Empire's first magic army legion, which had annihilated the royal knights led by the previous king and queen, was evaporated in that terrifying mushroom cloud, just like snow under the sun. And all of this happened in less than a minute. The strongest legion on the continent was completely destroyed. Even in the Divine Era, such a terrifying attack had never been seen. It was an unstoppable natural disaster, an absolute power that could wipe out everything from the earth. So, those shooting stars that people see in the sky, do they really have such incredible power when they hit the ground? No, they are definitely not ordinary shooting stars. Since the Divine Era began, there has never been any record of shooting stars falling to the ground in this world. Even the princess, who inherited the bloodline from the Divine Era, has never come across any mention of celestial objects in her own library. What happened in front of her was a real miracle. That kind of otherworldly power doesn't exist in the books of this world. If she could possess such power, even if it was just a tiny part of it, then she could surely change the fate of the kingdom. In the face of such power, even the Empire's despairing first magic army legion was as fragile as paper and no match at all. Boom! Boom! Bang! The girl who inherited the bloodline from the Divine Era, and now carries the fate of the kingdom, felt the presence of a certain will in the depths of her heart. This is the only thing that can change the destiny of this country. Whatever it may be, if there is still hope for the kingdom, then it must lie in it. It is definitely not an ordinary shooting star. During its descent, it clearly changed its trajectory. As a warlock with the Divine Era bloodline, she would not make mistakes in calculating gravity. From the path of that falling object, the girl felt fate. No matter what kind of fate it is, for her, it is hope. Wait, what is that? Oh my, what has happened? The Empire's first magic army legion, it's gone. Not disappeared, but destroyed. Just now, a star fell. On the kingdom's castle walls, scattered figures began to appear, and a very small number of people actually witnessed the trajectory of the shooting star. However, the only ones who truly saw how everything began and ended were the 2 princesses who were praying in the high tower during the Divine Era. Even so, one of them still didn't know what this scene actually meant. Younger sister, I temporarily entrust you with the control of the Divine Era barrier. I won't allow anyone to leave the city. The girl gently held her sister's cheek. At this moment, it was a bit reckless to hand over the kingdom's most precious legacy to her own younger sister. However, she had already made up her mind. She was determined to approach that place, even if it meant paying a great price, to get closer to what might be a forbidden thing from another world. Sister, keep going. The young princess nodded as if she understood but didn't really understand. As the last bloodline of the Divine Era in the kingdom, they were the only 2 people in this world who could control the magic barrier of the Divine Era, and they were also the royal family that the Empire specifically requested to surrender. As time passed, the bloodline of the Divine Era had become very diluted, and often only a few people in each generation were able to awaken their bloodline successfully. In their generation, only the 2 sisters awakened the power of the Divine Era bloodline. After the king and queen died in battle, they became the last ones who could control the barrier of the royal city. This was also the reason why they could still maintain their freedom. If they didn't have this power, they probably would have been offered as sacrifices by the nobles after the news of the defeat of the Royal Knight Order arrived. This Divine Era Tower became the last stronghold to protect the sisters. My body will turn into dust and scatter in the endless wilderness. Listen to the sounds in the wind and travel to a faraway place. The girl's body emitted a glowing light, which was the unique and powerful magic contained in the Divine Era bloodline, pure and strong. When the Divine Era bloodline of the kingdom was at its peak, there were even more than 3 hero-ranked individuals. In that era, the empire had not yet been established and it was the most glorious time for the Divine Era bloodline. During that time, the kingdom was the dominant country of this continent, and the later empire was formed by splitting from the kingdom, with a territory less than 1/10 of the kingdom's. Unfortunately, as the power of bloodline weakened throughout the world, even though the Divine Era bloodline remained strong, the number of awakened individuals became fewer and fewer. Eventually, the kingdom lost control over the continent. The newly developed magic armor by the empire became the last straw that broke the camel's back and marked the beginning of a new era. The empire, equipped with magic armor, continuously conquered cities, expanded its territory, and within just a few decades became the undisputed strongest country on the continent. They ambitiously started marching towards the kingdom, which used to be the dominant country. In a span of 3 months, the kingdom, once hailed as the final glory of the Divine Era, was pushed to the brink of destruction. The glory of the Divine Era bloodline, just like the setting sun, was about to disappear from this continent. The era that followed no longer belonged to the ancient knights and magic, but to the empire with its advanced black technology, a fact even the kingdom had to acknowledge. The final battle of the King's Knight Order was tragic. Even though they had hero-ranked knights with a Divine Era bloodline, they were ultimately defeated by the Empire's war fortress and magic armor. "Father, your sacrifice was not in vain." The young girl still remembers the complex expression in her father's eyes as he touched her head before the King's Knight Order's final expedition. At that time, she couldn't understand why they had to fight a final battle that they couldn't possibly win. On the other side, the Empire's first magic army legion had hundreds of magic armor, as well as 3 flying war towers. She calculated the strength of both sides, but no matter how she calculated, the King's Knight Order had no chance of winning. Being intelligent since childhood and groomed to be the next queen, she felt a chill running through her body and was at a loss when she looked at the data of those magic armor. Her father must have noticed this as well. The Divine Era's final Knight Order was once the invincible King's Knight Order of the continent. Perhaps they were the strongest in the era of swords and magic, but they could never defeat that magic armored legion. It's probably very difficult to win. But we still have to fight. Because this is the honor of our Divine Era bloodline. At that time, on the night before heading off to war, the king told his daughter this. The royal family who inherited the Divine Era bloodline must protect this city, even until the very end. The kingdom was established for this reason. The blood running through their bodies comes from an ancient agreement, and even if they fight until the last person, they must protect the Divine Era heritage they have inherited. This is a pact, and also a pledge, that even if only one person is left alive, they must protect the heritage of the Divine Era. If they die in battle, then as a princess, she automatically becomes the next queen and carries this mission. I'm sorry that you have to bear such responsibility at such a young age. If we lose the battle, then you can make a choice. By then, you will naturally understand what to do. Those were the last words the father said to his daughter, and it was the secret passed down through generations of the royal family who inherited the bloodline of the Divine Era. At this point, no one knows the truth about the inheritance of the Divine Era. The Empire wants to capture the capital city not just to demolish it, but to transform the wealth accumulated since the Divine Era into materials used to make magic armor. The principles behind all magic armor can be traced back to the reuse of the divine era's power. Whether it's mass-produced machines or titled machines equipped with war towers, they are essentially the realization of the mysterious power, allowing ordinary people to freely use the divine era's power. What drives those magic armor is a combination of magic and science. In a way, the Empire's first magic army legion is actually a fabricated divine era bloodline. Among them, he defeated the Knights of the Royal Knight Brigade and killed the king who was a true divine era bloodline knight. The three operators of titled machines, who were also distant relatives of the royal family according to the family tree, were defeated. It was impossible for them to awaken the divine era bloodline, but they still managed to defeat the king who possessed the true divine era bloodline. This represented the arrival of the era of black technology and the transformation of a new era. The power represented by the imperial magic armor was like a trumpet of an era, announcing the end of the old era. Of course, the divine era bloodline is a very precious resource that should not be wasted under any circumstances. The two princesses who became captives would probably spend their entire lives like caged canaries, being kept for various research related to the divine era bloodline. The children they give birth to will be the Empire's most important research resource, and there will never be enough of them. Before the divine era bloodline becomes extinct, they will all be relentlessly used as mere birthing tools. They won't be allowed to end their lives even if they wish to. It was only because she understood the cruel fate that awaited her that the girl made her choice without any hesitation. "Father, did you already understand all of this and that's why you sacrificed the entire Royal Knight Brigade to stop the Empire's first magic army legion for one day? Is the truth about the divine era heritage related to this sudden falling object? What is inside there?" With anxiety about her future destiny, the girl's body turned into a shining white dust and disappeared in the high tower, flying in the direction of the dispersing mushroom clouds, carried by the wind. Chapter 10. 20-inched. Walking through the desolate wasteland that had turned into a hell, the girl's vision was filled with endless destruction on the ruins of the Empire's first magic army legion, still emitting orange-colored light waves. Observing from hundreds of kilometers away is different from coming here in person. That world-destroying power deeply shook the princess who possessed the divine era bloodline. Even during the divine era period, such a spell has never appeared on Earth. It can burn everything to ashes, even shattering the Earth's crust. If it were to fall in the capital city, even the divine era magic barrier would instantly collapse. What is it, in the end? Is it a star? Or is it the mystery of gas? The princess, who was getting closer and closer to the place where it fell from the sky, felt her heart rate increasing continuously. The temperature around her had already exceeded tens of thousands of degrees, and the remaining high temperature had turned the magma into plasma, displaying a magnificent and dangerous brilliance. Even the former king of the Empire, who held the rank of hero, couldn't approach this temperature. The Empire's proud first magic army legion couldn't even leave behind a single piece of wreckage. If the princess didn't have the ability to temporarily transform into light and shadow, it would be impossible for her to enter this area. At present, she is in a peculiar state where she cannot be harmed by anything from the outside, but also cannot affect anything from the outside. In this world, this power is called the blessing of the gods. It is a special ability that is innate and originates from the ancestors of the divine era. Closer, even closer, the princess finally saw what had fallen from the sky, earlier and faster than anyone else. However, the astonishing appearance made the princess, who had turned into light and shadow, unable to believe that it was just a falling object that wiped out the Empire's first magic army legion, such a presence. The slim, silver-white body was half-kneeling in an ocean of transformed plasma, like a work of art, as if it were asleep and motionless. Part of it was recorded in the Royal Library during the Divine Era, an existence that had long disappeared from this world, a dragon. The enormous spiral silver-white dragon horn on its forehead, the silver-white dragon tail behind it, and the silver-white scales covering its entire body all presented a beauty that was completely different from this world, as if it were a work of art created by gods themselves. The other part, however, was the human form, equally charming. The pale gold ribbons hanging by its ears were engraved with countless dragon blessings in a language unknown to the princess. There were unfamiliar emblems on its forehead, symbolizing the favor of the supreme dragon god. Embedded with a golden-red glow on its shoulders, a towering and prominent chest, slender and supple waist, and long legs, every aspect was a perfect work of art. The hands were protected by giant gauntlets made of some kind of scales, and her nails were red dragon teeth. She held a dragon spear in her hand, which was wrapped with countless chains. The body of the spear had huge sword marks, which were the imprints left by an invincible childhood friend. On her chest, there was a dragon-shaped emblem similar to her forehead, but it was about 3 times larger. The giant dragon wings extended out, almost completely overlapping with the snow-white edge. The sun and flames. Pitch black and pure white. It was a curse and a blessing. It was the star-hunting dragon, the ultimate weapon of the divine realm's dragon called Endless God's Domain. It was forged with magic and science at the highest level, and the soul of the star child was used. Its real name was Mumu Narabel. With its magnificent and dazzling appearance, it possessed the power of both stars and dragon gods. It was specifically designed as an armor to hunt down the star children. However, this ultimate weapon had several visible damages and shrank from tens of thousands of meters to only a few tens of meters in size. Even so, for this world, its posture is still too sacred and too shocking. Compared to this ultimate armor created by the Empire, the magic armor is simply like toys that children play house with. This is the curse left behind by the supreme dragon god Asha for the fugitive children of the stars. It is also a binding mark that cannot be escaped, even if they use the power to travel between the stars and reach a place unseen by any deity. Dragon, a silver-white dragon. The body of the princess with the divine era bloodline trembled incessantly, tears falling from her eyes. This is what she wanted to see, the truth she wanted to know. The power that definitely doesn't belong to this world, but comes from that part of the starry sky. Her prayer was heard. Hoo-ha. It seemed to have heard the princess's voice. The eyes of the star-hunting dragon armor slowly opened and saw the girl praying devoutly in front of it. Where is this place? Who am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going? My memories have become fuzzy. What happened exactly? My body feels so heavy, as if it weighs hundreds of tons. The view is very strange. Over there is a little girl kneeling on the ground with her hands clasped together. She looks like a tiny fairy. Is this the fairy kingdom? Oh mighty dragon, I am willing to give everything, praying for peace in my country. I swear on the bloodline of the divine era that I will never reveal your secret. Welcome to our world, the sacred silver dragon. Silver dragon. The confused star-hunting dragon raised its hand and gently placed the small fairy in its palm. Then, it saw its own hand for the first time. The hand was silver and smooth, like a young girl's hand, adorned with armor that sparkled like stars. The girl, who had wished for protection, trembled in this hand. Is this what my hand looks like? Who am I, really? Chaotic memories kept intertwining and becoming mixed together. Yes, he is, his name is. Numerous connections resonated with a pleasant sound. The wounded star-hunting dragon flew into the sky, gazing at this unfamiliar world. Apart from the destruction for hundreds of kilometers, there was a huge castle and white walls nearby, with many small villages and towns further away. This is not the White Lotus Sword domain, nor is it the Sky Sword God's domain. You managed to escape. Star-hunting Dragano, it was Yun Zai looked at this world that was clearly different from the eastern style of God's domain and breathed a sigh of relief. In the next second, endless exhaustion rushed into his body, covering his consciousness. He didn't even have time to think about why he had fused with Mumu, who had taken the form of a star-hunting dragon, and turned into a stream of light that streaked across the sky, falling into the central relic of the kingdom's final divine era. "Sister, you're back." The young princess opened her arms, welcoming her sister's return. "What's the deal with this egg?" She curiously looked at the silver-white giant egg, about 3 meters in size, that had come back with her sister. Was it the egg of some wild animal? "It is our hope." Unlike the uneasiness when leaving, the eyes of the kingdom's last princess were now filled with radiance. That is a look of confidence, determination, and the ability to overcome all difficulties and obstacles. Chapter 10:21 No matter what happens in this world, no matter what we face, the sun will still rise. The natural disaster that occurred 100 kilometers away from the capital city is finally known by the people of this world and quickly spreads like a massive earthquake. Look, stars are falling. The Empire's first magic army legion has been completely wiped out. No, I heard it was the capital city unleashing the forbidden curse of the divine era, completely destroying the enemy. Where did this news come from? Did the divine era possess such magic? Yes, there is a magic called Earth Dissolution. No, it's a nuclear explosion, a large-scale one. The residents of the capital city, who were the first to witness this event, were filled with excitement and joy. Instead of believing in the accidental fall and destruction of the Empire's first magic army legion, they preferred to believe in the explanations that followed. Some even found the so-called truth from unreliable accounts in books about the fantasy-filled divine era. The earth melted, and using the hidden power of the earth's crust, the forbidden spell of the divine era was activated, causing the crust to explode, triggering a doomsday-level forbidden spell similar to a super-volcanic eruption. It was an unrealistic fantasy from a magic apprentice during the divine era, only existing in fictional stories. Nuclear explosion, a slightly more credible forbidden spell compared to the Earth's melting, originating from a study in the late divine era. Its principles and release method are unknown, but there are traces of its powerful effects in past experiments. Compared to the unrecorded fall of a star in this world, actually the fall of a star-hunting dragon, the explanations that followed seem more in line with the worldview of the people in this world. With the legacy of the divine era and the presence of a princess who possesses true divine era bloodline, the incident happened to take place in the territory of the Empire's first magic army legion. The surrounding villages had already been evacuated before the war began. The kingdom, which was on the brink of ruin, suddenly seemed to have a turning point. Too many coincidences made people suspect that the death of the previous king might have been one of the sacrifices for this forbidden spell attack. It doesn't actually seem like a bad deal for the royal knights to replace the Empire's first magic army legion. If the legendary forbidden spell of the first magic army legion of the Empire is truly destroyed, whether it is through melting the Earth's core or nuclear explosions, it represents that the palace still possesses the strongest trump card. And the person who can use this trump card, without a doubt, is the kingdom's last princess, who inherited the bloodline of the divine era warlock. There are even people swearing that they saw the princess, who turned into a white bird, flying out of the capital at dawn. All of these combined give the kingdom, which was originally restless, confidence once again. As long as the princess is still here and the legacy of the divine era remains, the kingdom will not be destroyed. Look, even the mighty and invincible first magic army legion of the Empire, the hundreds of magic armors, and the 3 titled machines with hero-ranked strength, were all reduced to ashes before the power of the forbidden spell. Long live the princess! Long live the kingdom! Empire fools, see the power of the divine era legacy. If you dare to come again, only destruction awaits you. People spontaneously took to the streets, shouting slogans that made the hidden imperial spies restless. Yes, even they, as spies, believed without a doubt that this was the power of the Divine Era heritage. How could such a coincidence happen in this world, with a shooting star landing directly on the head of the Empire's first magic army legion and turning the entire legion to ashes? Compared to the chance of being killed by a meteor, they believed more in the kingdom unleashing their final trump card, using the power of the Divine Era heritage. After all, even the Empire didn't know what the Divine Era heritage, fiercely guarded for generations by the royal family, truly was. Apart from the kingdom, there was no longer any Divine Era bloodline left on this continent. Even the founders of the Empire were just a branch that split from the royal family, considered to have lost their inheritance rights. If it was the power of the Divine Era heritage, then the appearance of forbidden spells was not impossible, even though the power level of forbidden spells had not been seen since the end of the Divine Era. However, if true Divine Era power could still appear anywhere on this continent, it would only be here, because this place possessed the last Divine Era bloodline on the continent and the only confirmed intact Divine Era heritage. Look, search for me. Collect all the books that describe the forbidden spells of the Divine Era, whether they are novels or secret records, diaries or anything else. I want to know what exactly destroyed our country's first magic army legion. Damn it, what else are those royal families hiding? Such power, and they only started using it after the king died in battle. General Ryder, the hot-tempered commander of the Empire's First Corps, angrily snapped his beloved pipe in his office and started shouting. In front of him was a map of the kingdom, with half of the kingdom's territory already marked with the Empire's blood-red flag. The royal city, located in the center of the kingdom, was now surrounded on 3 sides. The Second and Third Corps, which were closest to the capital, only needed 3 days of marching to join forces with the First Magic Army Legion, which had already advanced to within 100 kilometers of the royal city, and launched the final assault. Everything was going smoothly. In fact, in the last communication last night, the news came that the First Magic Army Legion had arrived at the capital before all the other legions, and the city was about to surrender, offering the last 2 Divine Era princesses as a gift. Ryder believed this was perfectly reasonable. The Empire's power had become so strong that the surrender of the kingdom was nothing out of the ordinary. Who could have imagined that everything was just a smoke bomb released by the kingdom, and even the death of the king could be a trap for the enemy? On the map, the closest flag to the kingdom capital and the surrounding territory for dozens of kilometers are now marked with a big red cross. The Empire exhausted all astronomical resources, and even in the final battle against the Royal Knight Army of the Divine Era, only a small magic army legion with minor casualties appeared, and they were completely wiped out in this location. Not only the First Magic Army Legion, but also the surrounding land for dozens of kilometers was shattered. The destructive power even sent chills down the spine of the experienced General Ryder. In the face of this devastating power, even if there were 10 Empire First Magic Army Legions there, they would be instantly obliterated. The kingdom, who would have thought they were hiding such an ultimate weapon? I thought that the forbidden spells of the Divine Era had already become part of history, so how could there still be physical remnants of them? To unleash a forbidden spell of this magnitude, theoretically, it would require the participation of hero-ranked warlocks numbering more than 4 digits. But this is just a theoretical possibility. How is this possible? Even during the Divine Era, there was nowhere to find that many hero-ranked spellcasters, not to mention that the number of hero-ranked individuals has greatly diminished, just like a small group of cats in the modern kingdom. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.